clean intro, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you. Years of practice.
And we will be joined shortly by Ravana, who you might be familiar with from the Young Turks. And she unfortunately had an incident with part of her apartment falling out, and she needs to fix that before she can hop on stream. So keep your fingers crossed for Ravana, and we'll be seeing her soon. And hopefully we will be seeing SDL, who should be here. I don't know why they're not, but we'll hopefully we'll see them soon as well. So the race we're talking about in Wisconsin is between Judge Janet and an evil man named Judge Dan Kelly. Judge Janet is in favor of everything that is good in this world, and Judge Kelly, I hear, kicks puppies. That's just a rumor I heard. I cannot verify that, and I'm making no definitive claim about it. Many people are saying though.
Yes, and that statement is not made with malice since he is a public figure. So let's
Indeed.
not worry. Just keeping our butts covered.
Yeah. So, in reality, this is the most important race in the United States at this very moment, and possibly this entire year.
Oh yeah.
And it is basically so many different issues are on the line here. We're talking about abortion. We're talking about trans rights. We're talking about the very concept of democracy, representative government. All of these things are really on the on the line today, and we only have a handful of days left to actually get out there and make a difference, because the election day is April 4th. It's coming up real fast here. In fact, April 4th is this Tuesday, and we have a canvassing event that's happening tomorrow, April 2nd. If you are interested in becoming involved in that, you can use !canvas in chat. And that will get you all the details if you can make it out to Wisconsin. Of course, if you can't make it out to Wisconsin, we have other options for you. You can use phone bank in chat to phone bank for Wisconsin. Now this is very, very important because you can volunteer like 30 minutes of your time, an hour of your time, or more, and you can reach dozens of people in just a 30-minute space of time. And just reminding people to go out and vote, just reminding people how important this race is, reminding people what's on the line, actually turns out voters. Like this is valuable work that you are doing, and it has the potential in a state that is as evenly distributed between Republicans and Democrats as Wisconsin, has the potential to actually change the outcome of the election. I think something worth noting is that in 2016, when Donald Trump won Wisconsin, he won that race on like a margin of like 14,000 votes, I want to say. Something
Oh Lord.
something ridiculously small. And like when we're talking about these margins, like it's like you guys can literally make the difference in these races. So we're trying to the main goal of this is to get people out to vote, and to get you guys in chat out to volunteer to do phone banking or canvassing on the ground, because it's really that important. Okay.
Honestly, I just thought of this, but I thought this was interesting because it would literally, the margin, if you want to put it in another way, is about the same as the combined total audience for all the streamers who are participating in this event, for the past several streams. And it may seem like a lot of people to us, but in the democratic process, 14,000 people is not that many. And yet every vote is crucial and every vote matters. And that's why this is so important, because that margin may also seem impressive, but I believe in 2016, Wisconsin was still the most gerrymandered state in the union, which
Oh
means
yeah.
that, yeah, if you have. So I've heard this example a lot, and I think it's a good example because it's indicative of how messed up the math is here. But it's basically gerrymandered in such a way where even if a Democrat wins about 50% of the vote, they only get 30% of the seats. Whereas if a Republican gets 50% of the votes, they get about 60 or so seats.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like 65 and 35, but yeah.
yeah, exactly. I couldn't quite remember the math because that's why I went to law school. But, but yeah, thank you so much for correcting little old me.
Oh,
But
no, that's okay. That's what I'm here for.
exactly.
And also to be corrected.
Oh, yes, because I mean, honestly, something I like to point out to my audience when I stream is that, nobody's perfect, nobody's infallible, nobody's always right. So it always generates a healthy environment when you can take, that kind of correction from your audience or from other streamers or people you're talking to in everyday life because life is a journey of learning and learning is what I am all about.
Yeah. Um, well, and learning is also what we need to do, right? I think, and I've talked about this before on our previous organizing streams, but I think treating 2023 as like, um, kind of your training ground for 2024 is really what we need to be doing if we want to be politically involved, right? Like
Absolutely.
if we want to be people who talk about politics and actually like move the needle in any real way, we need to be able to motivate people to get out there. We need to be able to, yeah, exactly. We need to be able to wrinkle our brains. We need to be able to tone our muscles. We need to be able to put on our walking shoes, as they say. Um, 1 second, we might have Josie Rose joining here.
Josie!
Cover for me while I type.
Absolutely. So, really, and I want to emphasize just how important this race is by just going over the candidates and what they represent, really. Because with Judge Dan Kelly, he's a fella who, as Jack emphasized, is a pretty bad hombre. So bad, in fact, that he was involved in efforts to overturn the 2020 election
Oh,
results in Wisconsin.
and here we go, Josie coming on in.
Josie!
Hi, how are
Oh,
Oh no!
hello.
There we go.
you? Can you hear me?
We
I'm
can-
sorry. I'm
we can
trying
hear
to
you now.
Get all this stuff going. Okay, sorry. There we go.
Hey, Josie.
Oh,
Good to see all of you. Are you live already?
We are live.
Okay,
yes.
great. Awesome. So I am going to go live myself as we are talking. How is everybody doing?
I'm doing great. And well, Josie, why don't you introduce yourself to all the fine folks out there?
Absolutely. I am Josie Rose C on this platform, but most people know me as Josie Caballero. I am an activist, but I also do a lot of stuff in the trans community. I'm the director of the U.S. Transgender Survey and Special Projects for the National Center for Transgender Equality and Action Fund. Also on the Trans Advisory Committee for the DNC, the board of TAVA. There's a lot of things. I'm just here for the vibes and to talk to everybody. But you can find me on all the social media handles, Josie Rose C. Yeah, it was you may feel a little tired because it was Trans Day of Visibility yesterday, so I was extremely busy for the entirety of the week.
You're
you were
extremely
totally
visible.
fine.
Yeah.
Had to be
Yeah,
extremely visible.
Yeah, and Kevin, I haven't seen you in forever. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am fed. I am hydrated. I mostly got rid of the sleep deprivation of this past week, but my cat woke me up this morning. But otherwise, I'm doing great. Was on a bit of a hiatus, but I'm so happy to see your smiling faces again. I miss this part
Yeah.
of streaming.
Well,
I haven't streamed in like a month and a half, possibly.
Oh
Like
boy.
I didn't even stream. I didn't even stream for my like 2-year anniversary
Oh
on on
dang.
Twitch. It was like I know I've been so busy doing other things.
Well, we're all here to try and get people out to canvass on the ground and to phone bank for the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race to try
That's
and
so that's so great.
well, we're
Yeah, because go ahead,
just
Jack.
so many different things are on the line: abortion, trans rights, like basic worker protections. Uh, Basically, for like the last decade, Wisconsin has been in kind of this headlock between their Republican legislature and the Republican-leaning state Supreme Court, and it's really only like a pang of conscience that prevented like Wisconsin from like certifying the fake electors in 2020, which would have had sweeping ramifications for the entirety of the United States.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're like so many things are on the line um for just like basic human rights and dignity in Wisconsin, and all of the implications beyond that for the wider United States, and even beyond that, the international ramifications. um
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
It's like a domino effect with how these races impact other things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Jack, did you see that article that I sent you? I was actually quoted in it about Wisconsin in particular. It also had a video from one of the opponent in the Wisconsin
Mhm.
race, and it was purely anti-trans phobic, so it's all transphobic, and it's essentially what is happening is the challenger is trying to essentially say, if you give me a trans piece of anti piece of trans legislation, I will not stop it from existing. And it was really interesting to have that conversation because with the reporter in Wisconsin, because to them they were very nervous as a trans person themselves,
Mhm.
but for the fact that this is kind of what the messaging has become. And a lot of this messaging actually too is coming from super PACs.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it was a really interesting conversation to think about how these super PACs are now stoking the culture war and kind of like imprinting onto the candidate that they are, this like,
Yeah.
paragon of anti-trans, sentiment, which is a very interesting thought.
Yeah, like it's really what's really interesting, right? Is that when you look at a lot of the polling on like trans issues specifically, like being anti-trans is not super popular within the Republican Party even, which is kind of wild, right? Because the impression that I think most people get is that the Republican Party is extraordinarily anti-trans because those are the policies they pursue, those are the talking points that they read off, all of that. But what's really interesting and about that article you sent me, Josie, was from Wisconsin Watch, is that even though trans rights are not like considered a huge concern in the race by Republicans, outside super PACs are coming in and dropping a ton of money to run these ads about how transgender ideology will be imposed on our kids if Judge Janet Protasewicz is elected. She will impose transgender ideology, and like they make reference to parents suing Eau Claire schools for transgender policy and saying like accepting trans students violates parental rights. And like literally the only thing that will stop that from going into state law in Wisconsin is if Judge Janet wins. The only thing that like protects trans rights at all is if Judge Janet wins. And if Dan Kelly wins, well, we've seen him in on the debate floor when he talks about abortion rights. And when he talks about abortion, it's abortion, that's for the state legislature. And it's just so convenient for him that the state legislature is overwhelmingly Republican. And
oh yes,
is made so by the electoral maps that he supports.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's extremely gerrymandered.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about that right before you got on, Josie, and like you can actually like it as a fun little experiment for people in the audience. If anyone wants to like just take a look at how gerrymandered the districts are in Wisconsin, go look at like a 2000s era electoral map of Wisconsin. Right? You can go look at like the electoral map of Wisconsin in the year like 2002 or something. Then look at it in 2011. And it turns like these rectangular kind of square districts into like actual like, just random fractals on the map. It's that make no sense whatsoever unless you're trying to achieve a very specific political outcome.
Little salamanders scurrying across the state.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to something a lot more sensible. And I have the definition of gerrymandering here for the folks at home who may not know what that is.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Because it's a term that's thrown around a lot, but basically all it is that there's a process where every 10 years, states redraw their legislative and congressional districts following the taking of a census of the population. And based on how communities can change, this is critical because redistricting is supposed to be where maps are redrawn to ensure that districts are equally populated, they comply with laws like the Voting Rights Act, and are otherwise representative of a state's population. That's important. However, the problem is that even though the original intent of the process, as stated by the founders of the United States, is that the district should be an exact portrait, a miniature of the people as a whole, gerrymandering is more frequently identified as basically being a very hyper-partisan process where parties draw district lines based on what will give them the most advantage in a race. And I didn't realize this until recently, but Rucho versus Common Cause, which was a U.S. Supreme Court case that was decided recently, basically made it so that gerrymandering for party advantage, as in what we're talking about right now, cannot be challenged in federal courts, which is why these state races are so important, because we can't rely on the old guardrails of, like a challenge to the Supreme Court on the constitutionality of these actions to do anything. Not that they did anything for that previously, because the Supreme Court still was very hands-off about deciding whether gerrymandering was bad or not. But now it's especially important.
Well,
because now it's up to the states.
And it's been kind of this ongoing process, right? Since 2016, like the allowing the Voting Rights Act to the protections from the Voting Rights Act. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? To lapse. A lot of southern states made the argument that essentially, like, oh, we promise we won't be racist anymore in our voting rights policies, and so the Supreme Court bought that as an argument, and the guardrails of our system have been slowly being have been in the process of being dismantled for many years now, and we're now at the point where, like, if this one judge doesn't win this one race, which, how insane is it that judges even have political races in the first place?
Oh, right.
Like, if this one judge doesn't win this one race, like, an entire state is going to be effectively undemocratic for the next decade.
And it ripples, right?
Yeah,
Because the precedents that they set will then be used in Supreme Courts that obviously, like the one we have now, that doesn't act in good faith, and
yeah.
that's a huge issue.
Well, and
The state
that
will be red pilled.
Well, that and we
Yeah.
were talking about the gerrymandering and how bad it is, but like if the Republican Party gets 50% of the vote in Wisconsin, they win 65% of the seats. Like that is such a skew that like and if it is allowed to continue to be skewed because they wanted to even gerrymander it even more following the 2020 census, like if that is allowed to continue, then you effectively just don't have a democracy in Wisconsin. And I mean I feel like that sets a very dangerous precedent as well if that is allowed to continue, because then what is the mechanism for change there? You know, one of the reasons democracy works is like the peaceful transference of power and the guarantees of like representative government. And if you don't have representative government, then like it puts the very system in an existential crisis.
I mean,
Right.
essentially, yeah.
It does. I mean, we're already like in a constitutional
Oh
crisis.
yeah.
Like, let's be
Yeah.
honest. Right. It's really, really scary because we're seeing things that have never been seen before. I mean, the fact that, not to change the topic from Wisconsin, but we have a former president indicted.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's never been happened before.
Huh.
Like there's so many things that are happening, and it seemed like I always notice this in like politics in particular is the fact that when the minority rule system, which is the Republicans in this case, right, because they lose all the popular votes of almost everything, right, when they wanted special elections because special elections were really powerful for them, and now they don't want special elections because Democrats now come out to vote, right. They're now using they're trying to leverage their way in judicial systems, which are usually lifetime appointments,
Mhm.
and they know if they win these one race, then if they put all their chips on the table and then win it, that could have repercussions for decades. Right. So it's really scary to think how they're changing these different systems. And now we're going to go back with, the undemocratic system that Wisconsin wants to have, right? If they were to do that, then that would rig the game again for them to continue to take over the powers over Wisconsin. And then Wisconsin will then export their praxis on how they won Wisconsin and spread it to other states, making it more entrenched and making this country more minority rule. And that is a terrifying prospect. I mean, this race is probably one of the most important races.
Yeah, and you mentioned in there Donald Trump being indicted, and I do think that and pondering politics, who will be joining us later, brought this up, and I think just introducing this point for early viewers is worth noting. But the fact that Donald Trump has been indicted, and not only has he been indicted, he's expected to be arrested on Tuesday, and Tuesday is election day for the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. And
Interesting.
so,
He's going to be arrested for real this time.
well, it is it could have an effect to boost Republican turnout in the race, which is why if you've kind of been on the fence about volunteering, about phone banking, about canvassing on the ground, you need to do it. Like that now is the time to get off of the fence and to apply yourself, because uh the MAGA voter is incredibly motivated at this particular moment in time to do something, anything, to support the party of their president, the Republican Party. And so they're going to try and turn out for Dan Kelly, and you need to be able to match that, because otherwise uh this seat is lost, and like there's no do-over. There's no second crack at it for another decade. So we
Yeah.
need to make this count.
We do.
Well, totally. And that was just such a honestly, the arrest of a former president was such an like earth-shattering concept because it's never happened in our history. So, president is what we're seeing here. So, let's try and take that momentum and swing things towards a more positive direction, not only for Wisconsins or Wisconsinians. How do you say that, Jack? I'm not entirely sure.
Wisconsinites.
Wisconsinites. There we go. Let's not swing the pendulum towards a positive direction for Wisconsinites, but also for all Americans in general.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, I'm looking at some more of this propaganda that you sent me, Josie, from like these super PACs that are pushing like Judge Janet is like a transplant, like the
Yeah.
transgender movement has planted Judge Janet Protasewicz in
Yeah.
this
goodness.
race. Here's just one of the texts being sent out to people in Wisconsin, okay? No subject. Woke trans activists have their candidate for Wisconsin's Supreme Court in Janet Protasewicz. Schools across Wisconsin are stripping away parental rights and trans kids behind parents' backs. There's only one candidate for the Supreme Court who will put an end to this. Vote for Judge Daniel Kelly by April 4th and protect your children from trans madness. Like,
Oh my god.
there's so much to unpack in that. There's so much. No, Judge Janet, like, they're trying to make it seem like Judge Janet is going to personally show up to your child's school and, like, sprinkle the magic transing dust into the ventilation
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
want some HRT?
It's interesting because like we're starting to see it's almost like I don't see more people getting converted into the anti-trans. I feel like it's becoming entrenched, right? You have one set of people who are just like so anti-violently trans, and then you have everybody else who's like, "Are we still talking about this?" Because the more that I'm like starting to like talk to people as the election cycle for 2024 kicks into gear, the more I'm starting to see people talking about gun control, talking about public safety, talking about economics, and actually like talking about tax policy. And I'm starting to hear like people talk about those things because I always say, like I said, I haven't streamed in a month and a half because I've been too busy touching grass.
Mhm.
And when when I talk to people who are actually not online, like trans issues, even though I live and work in the trans space, still I see people talk more about how the economic conditions or how this and that is affecting to the greater scheme of things. And I will say in the rooms that I do speak in, it's like people are miffed about how the Republicans are continuing to go down this path because like the political consulting class, right? The people who like get people elected all the time, they're like, how do we win a race when the candidates and PACs continue to speak in a way that we know can't win? Right. And it's really interesting because political professionals are just like, you really shouldn't say that. Like, you're going to lose the middle. Like, you can't lose that. Those are your margins to victory, and they don't care. Right. And so we're going to see. I'm very optimistic, and I don't want anybody to take this to the bank. We need to win Wisconsin, and everybody
Yep.
needs to show that these tactics don't work. But if we continue to win in these states like this, there's a possibility maybe they'll let up on their anti-hate, anti-trans rhetoric, and maybe move another direction, right? And it's interesting to think about that because if we were to push them away from this direction, we will save lives ultimately.
Yeah.
And it's so important to let the people know in Wisconsin has an opportunity to say, hey, anti-trans legislation doesn't work, anti-trans judges doesn't work, anti-trans campaigns don't work. And hopefully we can hope that this will be a canary in the coal mine for this extremist form of rhetoric, or we're just going to see more of the same, which I'm a cynical optimist. I'm thinking they're probably going to see more of the same, but we need to continue the win on it if that's the case, and we need to use it as a boon
I'm
for
I
like
mean,
growth
I'm gonna
prospects.
pull in Ravana here real quick.
huzzah!
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. One second. Let me turn my camera on. I apologize. My house fell apart.
It's okay. My computer died like 5 minutes into stream, so like
No.
it's okay. We've been struggle bussing our way through this, and we will make it to the end. I promise.
Exactly.
I was actually out canvassing for Brandon Johnson this morning, so yes, Texas
Oh.
local.
Excellent.
Hey.
Hitting the
That's
street.
awesome. So
Yeah,
you're actually in Wisconsin?
Oh, I'm in Chicago. I was canvassing for our mayoral race. Is pretty
Oh, okay.
contentious versus the
I bet.
Republican backed by Trump donors versus a socialist endorsed by DSA. So
Oh,
Oh.
is that what? Is that
Yeah.
it? Is that the two people?
Yep.
yeah, well, he's the other candidate is technically a Democrat because you can't win as a Republican in Chicago, but he has made his living going to school districts and destroying them and selling them to private corporations. So definitely want to keep him out.
Okay.
But
So he's
Okay.
ostensibly a Republican.
yeah, he said that he's more of a Republican than a Democrat. But of course, again,
When
Chicago
is that
Of
politics.
course.
election?
That is Tuesday, also.
Oh my
So
gosh.
things are
Oh,
things are
snap.
serious here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's scary.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on in the Midwest, and I feel like a lot of it is kind of a preview window into 2024. And I'm trying to I feel like it's really important to push both the Chicago race and Wisconsin, just because not only are they both like crucially important races, but it's the perfect training opportunity, you know, like if you want to be someone who can get out there, hit the ground running, and get other people engaged and involved, like like canvassing or phone banking in 2023 is the perfect way to build your chops for what is sure to be absolute insanity in 2024, because
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
yeah.
You know, because like, you know, it's a new world right now. Canvassing now post so far past the pandemic now, as far as how we've been in it. So that means that campaigns are going to go back to some sort of normalcy. So everybody's rusty at going out there doing this type of style campaigning, belly to belly politics. That if you get involved in stuff now, you're going to be a prime candidate to possibly get a paid position for another campaign. So really, like when you talk about activism, campaign season is here, and this isn't a great opportunity for you to get dust off some of the rust and get back out there and start making those calls, start banging on doors, and start talking to people again and see where they actually are and see what they actually care about.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think it's easier to start with state, municipal, local elections because a lot of the people who you door knock for or who you're calling just don't even know that an election is coming versus if you
Exactly.
start out with like a huge national election, people usually already have opinions and so it can be a little bit more contentious then versus now like most of the people I door knocked either had already voted or they literally were like there's an election next week. I thought I already voted. And I'm like, well, this is the runoff. It's the one that actually decides. And it's super important that you vote. So, like, it's a little bit less, or, also like organizing for issues like legalizing marijuana or Medicare for all. People tend to be a lot more receptive to that than like, I'm here for Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or what have you, where people are already
Yeah.
like, no, I hate that guy. But so it's like you can sort of get your feet in the water now and then be ready for those more contentious sometimes conversations. Not always, but people tend to have already formulated opinion on those bigger races than the smaller races, which honestly tend to be more important. Like the Wisconsin Supreme Court race is literally going to decide the issue of, abortion, trans rights, everything that the Republicans think that they can
Gerrymandering.
yeah, everything they think they can shoehorn through in the state is going to be decided by this race.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's a really good point that you brought up too. And I'm sorry, Josie, just this really quick point. You brought up a really good point, Ravana, in that, canvassing and these sorts of efforts help bring attention not only to the races going on, but these specific issues. So that kind of outreach literally has a wide ranging impact in that it's going to basically not only bring more eyeballs onto the race, but also just help voters who might have been motivated but didn't know about what was going on actually get out there.
Agreed. It's such an important thing, and like in these municipal races, like the margins of victory are so slim.
Yeah.
And those couple doors can really change it. So since you were out there recently, what were the top issues people were talking about at the doors?
Um, well, today it was pretty much just I voted or I didn't vote, and I'm
GOTV.
not, yeah. So, but in the past few weeks, it's a lot of people have been focusing on like Chicago schools. It's a huge thing because this race is between a former teacher and a guy who destroys schools for a living. So there's been that, policing crime in Chicago, depending on the areas, but like so that's sort of, and you shockingly, none of the even Paul Vallis supporters I talked to were concerned about making it illegal to be trans because it's actually not a super popular idea that the Republicans are trying to shoehorn in, that they're telling you that everybody hates trans people, but the public opinion does not align with that. But again, like the world is going to be worse for trans people if the if the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
if he's elected or
Did
in,
they did they did they bring that up themselves, or was like
I
at
mean,
the
the
doors? Did
only
people bring up trans issues? I'm curious because I want to know, like, what are those doors sounding like? Are people like automatically bringing it up over the last couple weeks?
The only people I've heard bring it up are people who live in Boys Town, which is our queer community here in Chicago, and
Mhm.
obviously they're all very pro. So it's like, there's this idea that like even the people who are supporting the right-wing candidate, whenever I ask them what their number one issue is, it's never like, drag queens. So we need to stop
Right.
this nonsense. So it's, I think that for me it's just been nice to know that the narrative that the Republicans are pushing is not the genuinely held belief of like the average individual or like what's deciding their votes in this election. Of course, Chicago is a liberal city, but like, moving forward, knowing that that's somewhat of a losing message, it was a losing message in the midterms. Moving forward, I feel good about it. Of course, or even like abort people. I mean, in the mayoral race, it's not an issue. Illinois, is we've put abortion in our constitution, but I still had people say that abortion was an issue for them in the mayoral race, and I'm like,
Yeah.
people are still pissed, and
Yeah.
rightfully so,
Yeah.
as they should. Even in a state where it's protected, they're fucking pissed. So I think that things are looking hopeful. The Republican messaging is a losing one, but when it comes to like this, it doesn't really necessarily matter if they get their candidates in these positions. They can put through whatever they want, and what they
Yep.
want to do is genocide trans people and strip people who can get pregnant of their reproductive rights. So if we campaign against that and in support of those things, people are receptive to it. So I don't know, but
I
people definitely care about crime. I feel like that is probably a winning
Yeah.
message for the Republicans,
yeah.
unfortunately.
I feel like as far as trans stuff goes, yesterday was Trans Day of Visibility, and it was probably one of the most virulently transphobic days I've seen in a long time on social
Jesus.
media. But I feel I even so I get the impression that like for a lot of people they're hitting up against like the oh wait a minute, you guys weren't just against like trans kids competing in sports, you guys
Like, oh, you want to kill them?
yeah,
Oh,
like people were going around posting memes of like the mass shooter recently who was a trans man, and like it was absolutely disgusting, and I like just straight off of like 4chan 8chan, wherever these people hang out, the Donald, you know and it was I think for a lot of people it's starting to hit a point where it's like the people I'm next to in this fight against trans people are utterly ridiculous. does that mean I'm utterly ridiculous? You know, like it's hard, for example, to be like, I imagine it's hard. I don't know for sure, but I imagine it's hard to be like on the anti-trans side, and you're like, yes, I am anti-trans for all of these well thought out and intellectual reasons, and then like, you know, you think they are anyway. And then next to you
Yeah.
is like the person who's like doing vulva phrenology. And it's just like who who's just like circling exhibits of like different vulvas used for like medical research, and being like, these are the trans ones, and everyone on social media is like, that looks exactly like mine, and I'm a
Yeah.
cis woman.
I
And-
thought I had a stroke when I saw that tweet. I was like, "There's no way."
Apparently she's been
Oh my-
doing it for a while. Like, that wasn't
She's
even
on
the
the
first
date.
time.
I thought that was just a weird example. That's a real thing that happened.
Oh yeah,
no.
that's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
There was
I'm
was
so glad I touched
essentially
grass.
yeah, essentially it was an art installation where an artist like took cast of all of these women's vagina, or not just women's vaginas, just vulvas,
Yeah.
vulvas in general. And this person on Twitter was just like, oh, and like did a circle, the ones that were like not like that assumed were cis,
Did
and
a
then the other,
full-on,
and
like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like, manic chart of, like, which
Pepe
ones were...
Sylvia.
Yes. Yes,
my
and saying
God.
this is a mutilated vulva and people need to know the difference and all of this.
Yeah,
It's just like,
her
what?
argument was that like by including trans women's vulvas in this exhibit, it was normalizing like genital mutilation. But I'm not transphobic, bro. Like, what?
She also
You know,
was talking about how, she had vaginoplasty, and like because she was self-conscious about the way her vagina looked, and she was like, I'm trying to raise awareness so this doesn't happen. I was like, I don't think it really does though. Like, people should be more familiar with their anatomy. That's important. But I just don't think there's like an epidemic of cis women going to get their vaginas done because they're self-conscious about the way they look. Like, that's
Yeah.
that like seems
no.
like a shockingly personal thing that happened to you, and not something that you need to blame trans people for.
I
mean,
actually met for the
uh,
first time. I actually met somebody for the first time at a wedding a few weekends ago. That was a cis woman that had a vaginoplasty, and I was just like, and we
Neat.
like bonded over like the maintenance of that, right? And it was like this really cool thing. And I asked her a question. I was like, how many of your cis girlfriends do you tell about this? And she was like, not many at all. And I'm like, that makes sense. So there's a lot of people who are just walking around that needed some form of dilation or some kind of work in their vulvas that make it, functional the way that, people who have, functional vulvas want it to have it. So it was just a really interesting conversation about like how trans, vaginoplasties are so scrutinized while cis women all over the world are getting them done themselves because of whatever medical condition they had genetically when they were born. It's
I mean,
pretty interesting.
Well, it's similar to how there's a not insignificant number of men who have top surgery because they have like conditions like I think it's called like gynomastia, where like
Yeah.
they just have like slightly developed like chest breast tissue, and so they get that removed. Like, and it's not a big deal when it's done for cis people, but for trans people, it's suddenly like a constitutional issue that needs to go
Or-
straight to the Supreme Court.
Or when sodomy laws were specifically targeting LGBT folks, as opposed to, the many cis folks that engaged in it. I mean,
Right.
And
Well-
also, just as a side note, as a non-vulva haver, I'm surprised that a lot of men on Twitter know what the hell a vulva is, just from what I know about men in general.
Fair.
Fair.
I will say that I just want to say that it's so strange to me that like so much of this discourse is being fueled by all of this outside money, right?
Yeah.
Like, we were talking about this prior to you hopping on, Ravana, but a lot of the reason in at least the Wisconsin race that like this anti-trans rhetoric is being mainlined is because, you know, billionaires and super PACs are entering the race and funding ads and funding and stoking fear campaigns in Wisconsin about like trans people. And it's so I think that it's running out of gas because they're having to try and throw gasoline on the fire at this point with billions of dollars or millions of dollars funneled into these super PACs. And I feel like the natural, like the state of where the discourse is not conducive to this level of transphobia.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the money is extraordinarily effective, I think, at motivating politicians, not so much at reaching like actual voters. And I think that's where we kind of have a chance to like kind of cut through a lot of the bullshit on the ground. And when we're talking to other humans, like over the phone for phone banking or canvassing. And for those of you who would like to get involved doing either of those things, you can use !canvas or !phone bank in chat. Or you can head over to oh god, one second, I need to type in the command so I can see the link. You can head on over to progressivevictory.win to sign up to get whatever way you want to like push in Wisconsin. We can make it happen. You got social media chops, you got image design chops, you got, you know, your walking shoes on, you got your phone banking headset on. Like, we can make it work, okay? So the entire point of this event is to tell you guys to volunteer in some way because they got a lot of money. The only way we can win is if we got a lot of people.
Yeah.
And speaking of money, !donate for American citizens who want to donate, because unfortunately people not from the United States cannot donate to this race. But that is just another way that you can help this process.
Yeah.
And to the point you were making, Jack, most of my family lives in Wisconsin. My mom's side of the family is all from Wisconsin. And I've talked to them about this race, and they're I think of them as like the perfect median voter because they're like, oh, I want my freedoms. I'm 45 and I broke my arm doing a cake stand last year. Like they're, they're a little bit, bumfucky, but also, they're like, yeah, I like abortion. People should have abortions. And they were like, this guy doesn't want people to be able to have abortion. So not going to vote for him. And, it really is like they're sort of appealing a losing message. And we saw it in the midterms, really, because they did CRT part 2, which had really lost its steam by that point. Like people were like, oh yeah, that's not actually an issue. So, but they just,
thank God. I was so sick of that discourse.
Right. They're so diluted, and they always accuse the left of being in an echo chamber, but they're truly like in an echo chamber because they don't give a shit what the voters actually want. That's not their issue. It's just about passing this agenda. But when they actually run on that agenda, people don't like it. Shocker.
Yeah.
Honestly, I even wonder if it's about passing the agenda at all. Like, I think for most of these people, it's just about getting those dollar bills, getting the money. And it's the out of touch billionaires who have their little pet projects. It's like
a lot
when
of this seems anti-human.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it's like when the Bill Gates Foundation in like the 2000s like tried to mess with education. They were like, we think we know how to do education better than those silly teachers with all of their book learning and training. And instead, they just wound up like incentivizing the entire structure of education in the United States to like pursue their grant money, and the education of children suffered for it. And eventually, they just had to quietly like withdraw all those grants, and our education system still has to be like redesigned to this day because of like one guy was like, I think me and all my money know how to do education better. And like it's like that, but every single billionaire who's like conservative leaning is like, well, I grew up listening to Billy Graham, and I think the gays, they need to go. We need to get rid of that gay marriage. Now, I don't hate them, but they're evil and of the devil. It's just like, what? And suddenly
it's
that
like,
becomes
what's his face from Daily Wire, who said like that. I don't want trans people to die. I just want the ideology to go away, which is the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, try that with Jewish people. See how far you get with that one. Okay? Like it's I just think a lot of our current political moment is being dictated not by like Republican voters, but by like Republican oligarchs.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like what I'm seeing, like, and this has been longer than I thought that, like that's the way politics is. Everything you expect takes a couple years longer. But so I'm starting to see the unraveling, right, of what the Republican Party used to be. It's very interesting because when you look at like the track record and how much everything has swung more and more and more to the most extreme portions of their base. Like, I had a friend telling me it's like, why are all these Republicans talking about George Soros? And I was like, oh, because it's a dog whistle for Nazi. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that like and and the person was like, wait, what? I'm like, but why are they mad? I'm like, because he's the Jewish rich person. Like, and they try to say that because he supports liberals, they say that he's trying to control the world. And that's
Mm-hmm.
it's a pure and simple anti-Semitic dog whistle for the Nazis. And so when they say anti-trans stuff, it's just a dog whistle to the Christo-fascist, right? That want everybody to live in their moral framework of what their book says. And so it's really boiling down to being these talking points in this way. And it's like, and when you say the abortion, it's the same thing with the Christo-fascist stuff, right? Where they're saying, oh, this isn't the moral framework. And what we're starting to see is there's less and less of those voters that can compete against the 2 years of youth voters that are coming in every time too, right? The CDC has already said that being a Republican is a comorbidity. You're 10% more likely to die younger as a Republican than a Democrat. You have a lot of that happening. You have the migration of people moving all over the country because of housing costs, unfortunately, because you can work remotely. Like you are seeing people become more conscious. And it's not that there's more like Democrats, it's just that there's more voters. And the more voters we have, the more likely we are going to win in a more leftist way. But I feel that this is a fever pitch, though. I feel that we are at a point where the fever is hopefully going to break, because it's either going to break or it's going to go the other direction where it's
Yep.
just death. And it's scary to
It
think about,
is.
but I think that's where we are, and that's why we got to keep fighting. And I'll leave it with this little last thing is Jon Stewart said something really interesting in an interview, and he said that the arc of justice bends, but it's not gravity that bends it. It's us. It's the activists that actively have to bend that arc toward justice. And I feel that is exactly what is happening, where they're trying to demoralize us to stop bending that arc so they can bend it back their direction. And so it's a fight for our lives. Quite literally for the trans people here, because it is a fight for our lives. Like, we're fighting for our own existence. They're literally calling for us to stop existing.
Yeah.
And we have to keep fighting, and we need everybody's support to do that, because trans people are a very small portion of the US population.
Yeah, and I think that like a lot of it, like you said, we're hitting that point where like the fever either has to break or it has to escalate, when it comes to like fascism, right? And I think, fingers crossed, we're in a time where, despite the mounting fascist rhetoric, I think that if they were to go full mask off to pursue their agendas, um, they would lose. And so we do have to keep fighting, but I think that it's at the very least, and I know this isn't like great or anything, but I think the fact that Michael Knowles couldn't come out and say, yeah, I mean we need to get rid of all trans people. That's what I mean. Instead he had to like backtrack. No, I don't mean that. I just mean we have to get rid of the ideology. Like, he had to be coy about it. I think
Yeah.
indicates that they aren't actually all that strong.
Yeah, yesterday Ben
yeah.
Shapiro said that trans people should not be allowed to own guns because they are trans, and he's getting eaten alive from
Mm-hmm.
not just from people on the left. There are people on the right. We're like, wait, I thought we supported guns. What the fuck are you
Yeah.
talking about? Like, he's
Right.
getting criticism from all over, and that's exactly what happens when they do just sort of say what they like, saying the quiet part out loud. They're afraid to do it because that's the response they get, because people actually don't. I mean, there's plenty of people who do, but the broad majority of people don't hold their extreme and fascistic beliefs that they're trying to shoehorn in through, particularly through state legislators.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This kind of reminds me, when I almost see a parallel with what Black Americans have to struggle with, in that, everybody on the right wing was talking about supporting gun rights for everybody. I think back in the 70s, 80s, until the Black Panthers started exercising their rights.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw some laws that, specifically impacted Black Americans' abilities to, carry firearms in the same way that a lot of white Americans do. And, to your point, Ravana, when you were talking about saying the quiet part out loud, this is why, Republicans who held positions of power in Republican administrations, even understood that when it came to, legislating against the interests of Black Americans, they couldn't just be mask off and outwardly say what they really meant, but they had to code their language in such a way where to them and to the people who understood the dog whistles, they know exactly what they're talking about. But to everyone else, it's like, oh no, they're talking about economic policy. What do you mean that's racist? It
Right.
helps poison brains a lot more efficiently with that coded language.
But that
So, I mean,
coded,
that's something we also have to be worried about.
but I would say that coded language has limits, and I think
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people aren't as dumb as like political parties I think believe them to be. Like I think that it's telling that for a lot of people they're suddenly starting to be like, oh, wait, George Soros is a dog whistle? Like, wait a minute. Well, they keep saying George Soros, and I looked up a picture and he's just like an old guy who survived the Holocaust. Like,
Yeah.
what is this all about? And oh, it's a neo-Nazi talking point. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
God, that's the most fucked up part, that he survived the Holocaust only to have like neo-Nazis basically use him as a dog whistle for the same kind of thing that most likely wiped out good parts of his family.
oh yeah, no,
Oh, I did.
yeah,
Like absolutely. Like he's like a very sole survivor, I think, in most cases, I think. Like I don't think any of his family made it out. Because his story is extremely tragic. He fled at like 14 years old, was forced to pretend to be a German, and was at 14 years old forced to catalog the items that they were taking from the Jewish people during the Holocaust, just so he can sneak out.
yeah.
And
He was
like,
like taken in by like a family friend who was in the Nazi party, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And then they smuggled him into America where he could be free. And these hateful, evil people that slander him basically say, oh yeah, he's a turncoat, Jewish person and worked actively against, his own people. It's like, what? He was a child. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
so disgusting.
and like on top of that, like the neo-Nazis who use this talking point, like they want to have their cake and eat it too on that particular point, because on the one hand, he's a turncoat who like facilitated the Holocaust, and on the other hand, like they don't believe the Holocaust happened, or if it did, it was totally fine. Like that's what the people behind that talking point believe, and we live in crazy times where that's just mainstream Republican rhetoric now.
Yeah, it's so gross. It's so gross. And that's why, again, I feel like it's unraveling, right? They're not gaining many people into their party that are young, right? Most of the young people, it's really interesting because, like, as a millennial, an elder millennial, I look at our voting numbers and our entire generation is voting now.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at Gen Z voters and their entire generation isn't even old enough to vote yet. And they're outpacing our generation when it comes to voter turnout. And it's like, it's hard to believe like how much of a difference that actually makes. And it's sad to see how many disillusioned millennials there are where they're just like not voting at the level that they should be when like I'm like 37. Like I'm like like how are people of my age not voting right now? Like it just blows my mind that an 18-year-old is more likely to vote than somebody my age. Like what the hell is going on in our world right now? It doesn't make sense.
Well, and it's kind of interesting too here, because one of the interesting things, like relating this George Soros talk to the Wisconsin race, is that you can see it because George Soros has donated to like the political campaign for Judge Janet. Every conservative in the state is pointing at Judge Janet Protasewicz and saying she was bought by George Soros, and like that's just like a mainstream thing. You can,
And then nobody defines what that means, right?
yeah.
Like it's just some person that was just using their right to donate to a politician, and that's really it. It's like if we were to use that same rhetoric, like we could easily say, oh yeah, that Republican candidate bought by Chevron. Oh yeah, that candidate bought by NRA. Oh, that candidate, but for some reason, like, or you could just use individual names of people
Yeah.
just because like it just doesn't even make sense. There's no logic to it because like Republican wealthy donors like Peter Thiel actually does so much more political activism than George Soros does because Peter Thiel's young and
Mhm.
George Soros basically has handlers that basically do this for him because he's so old at this point that the money's being managed other ways. So
Yeah.
so it's just really frustrating because I'd rather say, yeah, that's just a Peter Thiel funded candidate, but a Democrat wouldn't know what the hell that is. But like he's a really bad person, but it's a silly talking point. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Well, part of what's upsetting about this race in particular, at like the look, the Judge Janet's been bought by George Soros, is that literally this race between the two parties is the most expensive state Supreme Court race in history. Like both
Yeah.
both political parties have been pouring millions and millions of dollars into this race.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Judge Janet has outraised Kelly by quite a bit, but also keep in mind, Dan Kelly was personally paid like six figures personally, in December, right before the election, and also that was for his political campaigning work to try and
What?
overturn the 2020 election.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's been going around during the campaign, talking about how the state Republicans have not donated any money to his campaign. Literally, like 4 months ago, they gave him six figures.
I think the way they frame that during the debate when Judge Dana brought that to, people's attention, is he basically did what he does on a lot of other things, where he kind of hides behind, legal BS to sort of hide what he was actually doing. So he was saying that she lied and that he was working for a private client, and he didn't mention that that private client happened to be the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And he didn't mention what that work was actually supposed to be doing. So,
Right.
he's a slippery one, that Dan.
Well, also there are just so many like interesting elements of this election, right? Like I found this guy on Twitter, Scott Pressler. Are any of you familiar with him?
No.
I believe he's part of like the Gays for Trump movement.
Oh,
Yeah.
And he's also like he was at January 6th, and he's been campaigning in Wisconsin with Dan Kelly, and he's talking on Twitter about like the liberals will get rid of voter ID in Wisconsin, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting because that seems like an odd thing to bring up, that like Wisconsin already has voter ID. Why would this be an issue? Well, because we know that voter ID disproportionately targets African Americans, and there is a large African American population in Wisconsin that is disproportionately affected by the voter ID law. And in 2016, Donald Trump won the state by like 20-ish thousand votes. And weirdly, voter ID laws cost the Democratic Party around like 25,000 votes. Like it's the math of like how just fractionally how much voter ID laws shave off of like voter turnout. Like coincides perfectly with the margins that Donald Trump won in 2016 by. These are not policies to protect like the sanctity of the vote. They are not necessary at all. The only reason they get pushed in these states is for political purposes, not to keep elections safe. And that has also been borne out in court, I believe. But
yeah,
it doesn't matter to these people.
So I am going. It's so we were going to do this in increments, right? So I'm going to say about an hour now. We're at 1 hour. So is it okay if I move on to like leave the stream? I should have been
if we
more.
stop-
I didn't know it's going to be until like it's going to be how many more hours?
It's
gonna
we're going for about 3 more hours, ideally.
Okay. I haven't been on stream in like a month and a half, and I would like to talk to my viewers for a little
yeah.
bit. So
If you'd like to come
that
back,
would
though,
be
let me know.
yeah, for sure. I just got so much to share because I did my first. I'm now a Forbes Women contributing
You
editor now.
are.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats.
yeah,
Sweet.
yeah. I know it's so random. But yeah, I had my first article come out yesterday, which was a lot of fun to do. It was a visibility article, so
Yeah.
just I'm getting antsy to say hi to my community. I haven't been on in forever.
No,
Josie, you're so
worries.
cool.
Oh, stop. I try. It's got to be,
No.
I've been working hard enough. I've been working so hard my whole life, and I feel like finally somebody's acknowledging me, which is super awesome.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Well, good luck with everything, Jack. I will see. I might come back, I might not. I will say that I did have a migraine earlier, so I did
Oh,
take
yeah.
some Excedrin. So if it is coming back too strongly, I may have to say adieu.
Yeah,
But other
no
than that-
worries.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Love you all.
See ya.
Bye.
Later, Josie.
So we'll use the opportunity to just say, hey, you in the audience, the state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin is really, really important. Do you like representative government? Do you like the basic concept of democracy? Do you like trans people having rights? Do you like women having the right to make their own healthcare decisions? Well, if you like any or all of those things, you should get out there and canvass or phone bank for Judge Janet Protasewicz, okay? Because she's going to make sure you get all those things. And it's literally the only chance we have to unstack the deck that is currently in favor of Republicans in the state of Wisconsin. Okay? April 2nd is our last canvassing day, which happens to be tomorrow. If you can make it out to Wisconsin, tomorrow you have a chance to meet Judge Janet in person. And you can also hit the streets and make a difference on the ground. On top of that, if you can't make it out to Wisconsin, please, please, please consider phone banking. Even for a half hour, it helps reach dozens of people. Literally in a half hour, you can reach dozens of people and get them out to vote. And we know that from like the statistics we have, like any one household that you can reach drastically improves the chances that they will turn out to vote for the party that you are reaching out to them for, because you know the pool of people you are going to be directed towards are left-leaning voters. So you want to get out there, you want to change some hearts and minds, you want to remind them to get out there, and together we can make a difference. Okay.
So that is !canvas, !phone bank, and for U.S. citizens only, !donate. Thank you all so much for being here and being part of this process. It means the world to us. And Jack, just to kind of go off of what you were saying, you know, you can actually reach a ton of people from phone banking because, you know, as you were saying, it basically lets you cast out a large net, and it's not just you making the calls, but it's you and a group of people. So, you know, it's sort of a fun bonding experience where you get to basically work with other folks to spread a message, spread awareness for who this candidate is, make sure that people are aware that, hey, we have an election coming up. You should take part in it and you should vote for the right person, you know, because it's not, and this is something that was stressed in other streams too. It's not about debating people and changing their minds. It's just about having a dialogue and just raising that awareness. And sometimes, as the statistics show from what Jack said, that makes all the difference. It really does.
Yeah. And I'm going to pull in a Demon Mama onto the stream.
Oh my lord.
Hello, hello. Do we got any demons in the house?
Yes, you do. Sorry about that. I was fiddling around a little bit with the new welcome thing that Discord does. Apologies there about the delay.
Oh, it's
actually,
okay.
I do have my camera, I think.
Ooh.
But
The basest demon in hell has arrived.
Oh, thank you. I am the queen of hell after all. Let me see if I can. Is camera cool? If so, I can.
Camera is
probably...
more than cool.
Okay, cool. Let me see. Let me mute for 1 second while I fiddle with this camera. It might not work immediately, so give me just 1 second.
No worries. Oh, we can see you.
There she be.
Excellent. I'm here and the camera's working, although the zoom is a little off. That's weird. How did that happen? There we go.
There we go.
That's a little closer to. You're not supposed to be able to see that wire. See, that's the thing. My setup is actually. Oh my god, the angle's all weird. Oh no, my whole camera must have gotten bumped. No. Oh well, it's fine. I'll adjust it afterwards. This will do for our conversation. Yeah, the delicate illusion of my set is falling apart before our very eyes.
Oh god. We had a ton of tech issues. Ravana's apartment fell apart right as...
My whole window fell out of the frame. So
oh, shit.
And it was raining.
Everything's been falling apart. But welcome, Demon Mama. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much. Just putting out an announcement right now, so everybody over on the people have been probably flooding over to come watch. I'm sure you probably have some of the imps already in your chat, but just wanted to make sure they know that I'm going live on your show. You're live on your website right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Riverboat.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Live on the website and Twitch.
Perfect. Ah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt there.
Oh no, it's okay. Do you want to introduce yourself? Where can people find you? All that fun jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Demon Mama. I am the first and only at the moment demon type streamer on the web. You can find me over on YouTube under the same name, Demon Mama, youtube.com/Demon Mama. Or you can come to my website, demonmama.com, where it has a link to all of my socials. I post all kinds of cool stuff. I talk about politics a lot. I talk about media, specifically movies and video games, a whole bunch, with a special focus on the political themes of those different things that we discuss. And yeah, you should come follow me and hang out because you're going to have a good time and you'll get to have your third eye opened to the truths that only a demon can deliver you.
Excellent. Yeah, we've been talking about the state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, how it is literally the most important political race of the year.
I believe it.
And trying to get people to get out and volunteer to canvass or phone bank for Judge Janet Protasewicz, because if she doesn't win this seat, Wisconsin's electoral map remains permanently fucked, and also
gerrymandered to hell.
Yeah, yep. It's ridiculous. Something like if Republicans get 50% of the vote, they get 65% of the legislature. Which is a level of gerrymandering that is.
You love to see American gerrymandering, just incredible.
The actual real patriotic democracy at work.
Absolutely incredible. I've been brushing up on all of the details, and for those of you out there who like me tend to be a little bit reluctant to participate with a lot of your time in electoral struggles, as there are a lot of them, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. I completely understand that. I have ADHD like crazy. It is important, at the very least, to participate very strategically, and this is one of those opportunities where your participation will make a big difference. As the margins for an entire state to slip into very, very difficult to escape from Republican control is it's here. This is one of those struggles. This is one of those ones where every victory counts. So I hope that people will be willing to get involved because there is even if you are like someone like me, where I get overwhelmed easily and like to do my thing, to do my own thing, and talk about politics in my way of doing it. I have participated in many such things. You have to know when the right time to act is, and this is one of them. So
yeah, like not to mention like the national implications of the race, which like Dan Kelly was literally involved when he was the state Supreme Court. A state Supreme Court judge from like 2016 to 2020. And he was involved and paid by the Republican Party of Wisconsin to consult on their fake elector scheme in 2020. He just got cut a check for it for like $120,000 in December of last year.
Damn,
like, not to mention,
the price point is so low to sell out people's democratic principles, isn't it?
Right?
120K, that's it? That's like a G Fuel sponsorship. Come on, what is this?
Yeah, I mean,
you're telling me you can buy politicians for less than you could buy a streamer? What the heck?
There's one Raid Shadow Legends.
Might be a few Raid Shadow Legends.
Oh my lord!
Apologies if anybody here has a sponsorship with Raid Shadow Legends. I don't want to endanger your pristine sponsor. I'm one of the renegades who has played hardball with the
negotiating with Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah, they're like, $2,000. I'm like, no. They're like 3,000. I'm like, no, you better go. You got to add a lot of zeros onto that to get me to promote your game.
The Queen of Hell deserves much more than a paltry 3,000.
True. If I'm gonna,
Indeed.
like you. It's very difficult to buy me to sell anything to my audience, let alone something that I'm already disinclined to. So, attention to the Raid Shadow Legends people out there who are watching my every move. You better start jacking those numbers up if you want to get the imps on board. It's gonna have to be a lot more, okay?
I like the implication that like the Raid Shadow Legends people are like the CIA. They're sitting in a van outside your place. They're like listening in, like,
Yeah.
we're
They're
gonna
definitely
get
not
Demon
just,
Mama
like,
today.
sort of- yeah, firing out like they're definitely not just firing out like blanket emails. No, it's definitely they're definitely personally watching me.
I mean, with how widespread they are, I would imagine I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up being an arm of the CIA. Let's just be real here. You know, it's
I
just a
mean,
CIA psyop
does
to
make you think.
trick people into playing a shitty game.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say anything. Aaron, Jack, I actually wanted to bounce off what you were talking about with Judge Kelly too, because
Yeah.
we actually have some pretty solid evidence that, you know, he's the kind of person who would act very shisty when it comes to dealing with people who have benefited him personally. So, something that's talked about a lot in this race is the concept of recusal, for example. And just to give people a rundown on what the heck that word even means, judges recuse themselves when they take no part in deciding cases that they would otherwise help decide. And that's because the due process clause of the 5th and 14th Amendments in the Constitution are very, 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 very clear that people must have a right to a fair trial and have an opportunity to be heard, which, if you have a judge who's biased, that might fuck that up a bit. So there are two situations where judges are required to recuse themselves normally, where the judge has a financial interest in a case's outcome. Example, one of the parties is a donor to the judge's campaigns, and you know, where there is an otherwise strong possibility that a judge's decision will be biased. That's the second situation. So in either case, it doesn't matter if the judge is actually biased or not, but even the appearance of bias would open them up to being, you know, possibly shoved aside and taken off that case. Because, you know, the traditional logic here, and I'm just rattling off notes I prepared for this so I wouldn't lose track and just ramble into the abyss. But you know, the appearance of bias would damage the integrity of the judicial system. So why does this matter? Judge Kelly is against recusal, period. He doesn't think that it would make a big difference because, oh, well, you see, judges have to be impartial when deciding these cases. It doesn't matter if one of the parties in the case happened to donate a ton of money to my campaign. No difference whatsoever.
Yeah, no problem there. I see no corruption. That's just normal business. What you telling me that somebody who supposedly represents the justice system and the well-being of all people shouldn't just do whatever people pay them to do? Are you what? We live in America.
I know, right?
Moneyland here, okay? What are you telling me? I'm supposed to turn down that money if I take like an honorable position as a justice?
I know, right?
That's
I mean,
absurd.
the U.S. Supreme Court even addressed this in Caperton versus A.T. Massey Coal Company, and I'll give you the brief factual rundown of that case. One party requested a judge recuse himself because the other party's CEO spent over $3 million getting that judge elected. Oh, snap. I wonder how that could be applicable in this race. So, even though the Supreme Court didn't find evidence that the judge actually was biased, here's the kicker. The Supreme Court still determined that the judge had to recuse himself because there was even the possibility of the appearance of being biased because one of his donors happened to be one of the parties in that case. So I think there were situations, Jack, if I'm not mistaken, where Judge Kelly unrecused himself in order to decide in favor of one of the parties in his cases that benefited him in some way. The details on that are a little fuzzy to me.
Yeah, yeah, the I didn't know this, but you can unrecuse yourself as a judge. Like
Yeah.
if you recuse yourself, you can just be like, "Oops, take backsies," and then like you can undo it. How I don't know how that's allowed, but that you can just do that. And apparently,
Ethics.
oh,
Yeah. I was just gonna say the ethics rules for judges is a sham. I mean, there's none for the Supreme Court,
yeah,
but like even at like the state level or for like federal judges, it's a joke. It's a fucking joke.
well, like
Yeah, I'm like there are the judicial canons, but again, like some Supreme Courts and the federal Supreme Court don't have those.
We're
like
just
So
gonna
I'm
take
sorry to
we're just gonna
interrupt.
take your word on it. Don't worry. If you you know, if you don't feel like you need to recuse yourself because of your personal involvement in the stakes of the case, whatever.
it's all just feelings, feels over reals. Am I right?
I mean, Clarence
Oh.
Thomas didn't recuse himself for a case that directly implicated the actions of his own fucking wife. So
Oh my god. I was about to say, oh, that was a big one.
But Dan Kelly like recused himself from a case, got $20,000 from like the person who he was gonna rule on, and then was like, I'm gonna come back and rule on it. And apparently he unrecused himself a little bit too late to actually like vote on the outcome. But like
Nice.
the only reason you would unrecuse yourself is because you were intending to vote on the outcome. He just did a
Yeah.
little whoopsie daisy on the way to doing corruption in Corruption Town.
It's that trademark impartiality that all judges have. Trust and believe.
I mean, it doesn't help either that like being able to unrecuse yourself from cases that you're personally involved with allows you to take like a public stance when the attention is high on a case and be like, yes, I'm stepping down in my honor as a justice when everybody's looking, and then when nobody's looking, just be like, actually, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back, bitch.
We're so back.
Hey, welcome back. I just slept in. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah. I'm just here to completely change the outcome of this case.
And like
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, we need to get people like this, like as far away from holding power as possible. Uh, People whose worldview is that like, you should just go wherever the money goes, and always the money happens to go in the favor of the most heinous, pro corporate and socially conservative positions you can imagine. Yeah, these types of people, we should do everything we can to push them away from power, including phone banking and canvassing, which is what we're here for today, right?
Indeed. And folks in chat, if you use !canvas or !phone bank, you can get links to that, or you can go to progressivevictory.win and sign up with the volunteer form, and people will get you where you need to go. Yeah, when we're talking about this this Dan Kelly fellow and this Judge Janet situation, it really does kind of boil down to the fact that Judge like you can see there've been a couple debates between them, or one debate between them and one debate between them when they were in the primaries. And in the debate, like Judge Janet's like, yeah, I have received donations from the Democratic Party, and so I would recuse myself from any case in the future involving the Democratic Party. Seems pretty reasonable. Meanwhile, Dan Kelly's just like, no, I wouldn't recuse myself. I'm
Yeah,
capable of being an
high
impartial
road
machine.
thing, right? It's the people always meme on Hillary. It seems ancient, like an ancient meme now, but the high road versus the low road. We go high, they go low, but like they just always go low. They're always gonna go low. Like you're always gonna be like, yeah, I recuse myself, and then the Republicans like, I don't.
Yep.
Any Koch brothers, any major opiate companies that are willing to pay me, anybody, I'm willing to change my vote whichever direction you go. Come on, hit me up.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, like just like slapping a sign Like, I willing to be bought.
Yeah.
Someone buy me.
I'm an attorney. I have connections. Speak to me after the stream.
I decided to not be a lawyer when I was taking the MPRE the other day, because I realized all of the worst people in the world I know are lawyers, and I hate this. I hate doing this. I don't want to do this. Like the people I know who've like who are selling cocaine are going to be prosecutors putting people behind jail for selling or doing cocaine, or like people who have sexually assaulted people during law school at the law school, which by the way, my law school is named after a massive pervert. And on my first day of school, I was warned, stay away from this guy because he gets drunk and handsy at mixers, which is great that his name is on
Oh
the
my
door of the law school.
fucking
But those
god.
people are lawyers. They've become lawyers or they will become lawyers. And I'm like, why am I taking a test about ethics when all of you scumbags are able to do this shit?
Can I ask what the name of the law school is?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
But it'll be
For legal
doc-
purposes, it'll be off stream.
Yeah, for not getting for not having people send weird messages to my law school.
And also for not having
Fair.
to litigate. You don't want to provoke the law school in a legal battle. You know,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
True.
yes.
Yeah, not that guy's
'Cause
a
the whole-
billionaire, so I don't wanna,
Oh
I'll
my
lose.
gosh.
I'm a pervert. I think we have a case.
I'd like to say I'm one of the good ones, but that line doesn't really work a lot of the time. So let's just not. I'm
Oh,
not going to
dear.
go there.
Oh,
There
dear.
are I work in discrimination law right now, and all my attorneys are great people, but it's like you're all making $50,000 a year to literally stop people from getting discriminated against and evicted unfairly. And my friend is making $100 an hour as an intern helping companies acquire private jets. Like,
Yeah.
how is that? How is that equitable? I hate this system so much.
Our priorities are all fucked up. That's why, basically, because America is a capitalist hellscape. It's just that the people with fewer morals work for companies that also have fewer morals, and they make all the bags. Whereas the important work, like the work that you're doing, is not really prioritized that much. It's just
Sadly.
fucked that way.
Lawyers hate me. It's like those ads you see online. Where it's like doctors hate her. It's like lawyers hate her. They don't like me. They don't like me over here. I don't take their profession with a great deal of respect. They tend to go all like Better Call Saul. They're like chicanery. They lose their mind on me. Yeah. Like, you're running circles around the sanctity of the law. Like, true,
Man,
I am.
I feel attacked right now.
It's okay. It's okay. It's one of those times where it's like, if you already have the degree, you kind of like the heat can't hurt you that much because you already have the right to practice law, right?
I mean, I already have no soul, so you're right. I mean, I don't really feel any of this.
That works too. That works too.
Just as a heads up, in about 5 minutes, we're going to be pulling in some canvassers who have canvassed on the ground in
Hey.
Wisconsin that we can talk to, and we can see what the people in the good state of Wisconsin actually care about, what their desires are, and whatnot. What are their innermost secrets? We'll be able to divine all of these and more.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, if you're not even somebody who are like, if you're not like down to do the actual canvassing, you can always play a support role. I used to drive canvassers around because I had a car and I was the one person who had a car. So I would go drive them around to where they need to get to. Makes their lives easier. And well, I guess it's not, I don't know how cold it is in Wisconsin right now, but if you have a nice warm car, it makes your life a whole lot easier. So consider support roles as well. Yeah.
Weather's
So-
been shit here, so if you have a car, go help somebody out. If you're too nervous to knock on the doors, that makes total sense. It can sometimes be awkward and feel, and if they don't support your issue, they can sometimes be contentious. But what's the harm in driving people around? You don't have to, do the speaking part. Also, you can bring a buddy, and so if they're really, bold and they like talkative, they have no fear, they can do the talking part, and you can stand behind them holding the leaflets.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
my role today because I was tired and didn't
Well,
want to talk to anybody.
If you just if it's like your first time doing this sort of thing, you'll learn. You'll learn from just watching other people who are experienced. There's a lot of experienced people out there, and
yeah.
yeah,
If you and if you're interested in volunteering in like a non-traditional way, definitely go to progressivevictory.win, because you can then fill out like what are the skills that you have? What are you interested in doing? Like if you are good at art or interested in art, you can like do some graphic design for campaigns. Like politicians, they're not good at graphic design. Have you seen those signs? Okay, you can do better. I promise you. All right, you got some copywriting chops. You can write a sentence together. Well, guess what? A lot of people can't. Okay, that's why they keep those signs short. So if you want to get out there and like help, there are a lot of different ways you can do it, not just like on the ground. But we are encouraging you to get out there to canvas. Again, the main event is going to be tomorrow. So if you can make it out to Wisconsin tomorrow, definitely give that a shot. If you can't, consider phone banking. You can do it for as little as half an hour of your time just to try it out. And if it goes well, you can do more of it. But like we got like 4 days. Okay, we got tomorrow, we got Monday, and honestly, that's about all we got. We got 2 days. Okay, we got 2 days.
and phone banking is pretty easy. It's a pretty straightforward process. It's like basically all set up for you. So don't be afraid to phone bank if you're not like ready to jump outside and go door to door right now. Phone banking is a much easier thing to engage in, and it's really easy. You'll get all set up and you can still have a huge impact because believe it or not, people are very forgetful around stuff like this. A lot of times a phone call or a piece of mail that says, "Hey, this is when this is happening," is literally all it needs to make somebody go from, "Oh, I was intending to vote on this, but forgot the date that it's actually happening," to, "Oh, I'm gonna run out and go do my vote real quick," and it can have 10 years in this case, right? The position we're talking about here is a
Yeah.
10-year
Yep.
position. A decade is hinging on this particular race for Wisconsin. So yeah, reminding people is pretty important, and that helps a lot.
Also, as someone who was canvassing on election day here in Chicago for the first mayoral race, I door knocked people's houses who didn't know that the election was happening the day of the election,
Yep.
especially in a race that's like sort of out of people's minds who aren't super engaged with politics, like Supreme Court for a state. They might not even know. Your call might be the reason they find out that there is a race going on at all, which would be great so that they can also get out to the polls. So also, if it
It's a
feels like
common
it's
problem.
yeah,
Like I mentioned at the beginning that like it's overwhelming. I'm somebody who gets really easily overwhelmed with the like amount of elections and things that need to be voted on. It's very easy to get lost and overwhelmed and to just not know when things are happening, even things that are important to you. Like people who care a lot about the future of their state don't always have the state of their life where they're constantly have their finger on the pulse of when each thing is supposed to be happening. Some people don't even fully understand the process. Political literacy in America is not exactly our strong suite, and part of that is because it is complicated, and it's just something we have to react to as people who care in this country. So yeah, to double down on that point, like yeah, it makes a big difference. These types of things can actually make a huge difference just because there are people who don't know who you're going to go reach out to and connect with.
Exactly.
And
Oh, go.
and I
go,
mean,
Kevin. Sorry.
just something very tiny I wanted to add in, but it's not a scary process whether you're doing canvassing or phone banking, and it's important to remember that you're always going to have a group of very supportive people there with you. You're not doing this alone. And with phone banking, for example, you may get some anxiety, you might get some agita, just cold calling people out of the blue, but you can role play a call with other volunteers who were there. You can have a small script with talking points. It's not supposed to be debating people and beating them in the battlefield of ideas. It's just informing them on a few things and then moving on to the next person. Same with canvassing. So it's because I used to do both and I used to be very intimidated by the process, but you know, it's something that once you start doing it, it's going to be addictive. It's going to be a lot of fun and you'll meet a lot of cool people too.
Well, speaking
That's
of
right. You're going to get addicted. You heard it here, folks. You are going to get addicted to the Democratic Party, and you won't be able to. You won't be able to be unhooked.
starts with video
Joe Biden-
games, moves
Joe
to the
Biden
Democratic
will
Party.
own you.
Okay, moving.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
I'm moving our canvassers in here. We got Flowtrace and Lataviant. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Here we go. Welcome, welcome. We got 2 canvassers here. Hello, Flowtrace. Hello, Lataviant. Not sure how to pronounce that.
Greetings, canvassers and brave warriors of the Wisconsin electorate.
And the Wisconsin weather, because it was a nightmare yesterday.
Oh yeah, no. The weather was very interesting last night. We got a huge blizzard that came through.
Oh my lord.
I live right next door to Wisconsin, so I imagine it hit
Ah,
us too.
yes.
Don't joke around with a blizzard, okay? I'm from New England. I'm from blizzard country. You don't mess with that. Okay? Be buried in the snow before you know it if you're not careful.
Those nor'easterners can mess you up.
Flowtrace or Lataviant, we can't hear you or see you.
Hello?
Ah,
Is this
there we
working?
go. There we go.
Oh, my camera is just giving me a little bit of trouble, but just give me 1 second. I should have that fixed.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yep.
you just
Yes.
You are audible.
right.
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay. We got video. Also, how do you pronounce your name? Lataviant or?
It really doesn't make a difference. People have pronounced it Lataviant, Latavian, Letaviant. You can also just call me Matt and or Max. I go by either.
Okay. Are you gonna have camera?
Yeah, I'm gonna get that enabled in a moment.
Okay. Well, while we wait for that, thank you all for coming together for this progressive victory, organizing stream. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are giving up and volunteering some time, both canvassers and streamers. So I really, really appreciate that. And I'm really excited for the potential that we might be able to have getting people out to vote in Wisconsin for the state Supreme Court race. And I hope this is a positive experience for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, so far a lot of people seem engaged. We got a lot of viewers across everybody, which is awesome.
It's true.
Always a good sign.
I will have.
And if you're out there, and you're not from Wisconsin or you're not near Wisconsin, but you know some Wisconsinites, you could poke them and tell them to come check this out because they're going to have fun and they'll probably learn something. So if you're like, do I have any cousins, second cousins, second uncles, great grandparents that are out there, just reach out to them. Be like, hey, I haven't talked to you in 400 years, but you should get out in Wisconsin.
Okay, so we got Flowtrace and Lataviant, or Matt. And we just wanted to. I think maybe the best way to do this is for us to kind of like go around in a circle, like clockwise, asking questions of our wonderful canvassers here. And I would just like to ask hello. That's not a question, but
Hi.
introduce yourselves. Where are you from? And like, what kind of made you decide now's the time to start canvassing? Or like, what was the initial thing that made you want to do that?
Yeah, my name is Sam. I go by Flowtrace, sort of in these online circles. My first I'm from Washington State. My first sort of engagement with this was with Destiny's event down in Georgia just a couple of months ago. That's actually where I met Matt. I believe, Matt, you were down there, right? I'm not imagining that, I believe.
Yes, I was the man that got the hotels to make sure you were able to go down there. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So yeah, went down there. It's something, I think for a lot of people, it's just sort of it's a natural conclusion of sort of being online with politics. Man, I ought to do something, and everyone sort of comes to that conclusion eventually. And then when you have an opportunity, particularly one that is made a lot more easy to just click sign up, and then people tell you where you need to go and how to get there. That's, I think, a really powerful thing for the terminal procrastinators that make up my generation, which I am a proud member of. But yeah, so I went down there, and when I was going down there, I was able to get a really cheap plane ticket. But the reason it was so cheap is because it was a very weird window. So Destiny's event was only for a weekend, but I ended up being there basically for a full week. And I was basically trying to figure out, okay, well, what am I about to do? And Destiny, the Discord that Destiny had for his canvassing event, had given a bunch of shout outs to Maya over at Progress Libs. And they were doing an event sort of just like about an hour and a half drive from where Destiny's was in a different Georgia town. And I went over there and turned out they were going to be there basically the exact time window that I was going to be. So I was able to go link up there, stay with them for about 3 days before Destiny's event and about 2 or 3 days after Destiny's event. And then sort of just being tied into that Discord and signing up and being like, yeah, let me know if there are other events. I was told about the Wisconsin event. And there had also been some conversations about that in sort of Destiny's community. There was a pin post in his subreddit, which I frequent. And when I saw that, I checked my calendar, saw that I was going to be able to make it, and, just clicked sign up once again and headed on down.
Damn. Okay. What about
Hell
you?
yeah.
Getting plugged into a network is powerful. Once you start making connections with people, people are willing to help when they can. That's one of the most powerful things about online communities. That people are actually willing to help each other out sometimes, which is awesome.
Hell yeah. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so I've been doing organizing on and off since the Hillary Clinton campaign. As just like a low-level canvasser. I also come out of like the DGG community. I got involved the first original Georgia, assisting in the background, which transitioned to working on multiple of the campaigns and events that Destiny was running, which was how I also met Sam through the second Georgia event, from organizing behind the scenes. That was fun. Had basically 2 weeks, one of them being Thanksgiving, to organize a 300 plus person canvassing event. So so I've been kind of involved and decided it's probably not a good look just to kind of sit behind the computer every single time. And so when the Wisconsin race was coming up, I decided to shell out $500 to fly out for the weekend to just canvass in 17-degree weather, which was actually a lot of fun. Outside of the weather, there's a lot of really awesome people. Sam, we played a couple of games, we hung out, we were staying at the same place, so you just really get to know a lot of really awesome people. So I will continue to come out in the future.
Hell yeah.
That's really good to know. Thank you. Ravana, how about you?
Yeah, where are you canvassing in Wisconsin? Like, what areas have you been hitting?
All of the PV22 Progress Libs. There's also like Lake Michigan Democratic Initiative, which is like a sub-affiliated group for PV22. They were like the main people organizing for the Wisconsin race, and so that was all out of Waukesha. So
Okay,
we're over in Milwaukee.
that's where my family's from, actually. I was just wondering. Also, so for canvassing so far, because we were talking about this earlier, I was canvassing earlier in Chicago for the mayoral race, and so much of canvassing for these sorts of elections, I feel like, is just letting people know that an election is even happening. So I was just wondering what your perception of that was in Wisconsin, and like how important it is just for people to even fucking know that this is going on.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's just especially with this election, sort of going from the Warnock election to this one, there was such a noticeable drop off in sort of the visibility of the election and people who know about it. And also not just the election itself, but that there are multiple things up on the ballot. Even when I was telling someone that who already knew about the election, a lot of them didn't realize that there was more than just the Supreme Court seat that was up for election. That's obviously the most important one, but there's plenty of other elections that are also super important. We actually talked to with the Waukesha Democrats, the candidate that's for the state senate, I believe, Jody, and talking to her about how there are all these, sort of thresholds that Republicans are one seat away from in order to be able to override the governor's veto or put up people like the state attorney general up for impeachment because he's not enforcing their 1850 abortion law, stuff like this. And that's the kind of stuff that just almost no one knows about. There's a real information gap, not just about the election, but about the details as well. So there's always gains to be made in terms of letting people know, and also even if they know about all the elections, about when they can vote, how they can vote, what needs to be done. There's all sorts of specific stuff like that that a lot of people aren't informed of, and Minivan makes it really easy to let people know these are the elections that you are valid for based on your location. This is where your polling location is based off of your location. Here's when that polling location will be open. Here's what kind of ID you need. So all of that is made super easy.
Yeah, and just to add on, the Waukesha Dem strategy as well was to specifically target voters that vote in presidential elections but do not vote in local elections. So that was like right on hitting the nail on the head, or whatever the case, whatever that saying is. So we would go door to door and specifically try to find people that were not aware of the election but had voted Democrat in prior ones. So there were a good number of people that you knock on the door and they're like, oh wait, there's an upcoming election, and you get to inform them, and that always feels really awesome to be able to help educate people.
Did they just as a quick follow-up, did most of those people seem like they were inclined to vote again? They just had little awareness? Was that mainly the issue?
That was my experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the things that plagues our time, which is that major news sources spend so much time focusing on federal issues that local stuff gets completely overlooked. Even like I said before, even for people who really care about it, that like people just don't know what's going on because there's always a fixation on what's happening on the national level, what's happening on the federal level. What are these big, spectacular, high stakes or perceived as high stakes electoral issues, and then local issues just fall by the wayside in the pure attention economy. So I do think that like what everyone's talking about here, just even being able to just go out and remind people is a really major, because it puts it on their, it does the thinking for them, and that they don't have to be thinking about this all the time. They're being bombarded by all kinds of other political messaging all the time. This just says, hey, here's what you can go do to make your situation better right now in your local area.
Yeah, and I will say as well, my perception from the door knocking that I did, I was actually really surprised. I think I only encountered just a handful of people that were unaware of the upcoming Supreme Court election. The vast majority of people that I talked to seemed very knowledgeable about the issue going on. So I think that's like a really strong testament to the Waukesha Democrat voters for actually being educated on the Supreme Court. You definitely ended up with a lot more conversations relating to like the ballot measures that I talked to one person who was aware of them out of like the hundreds of doors that I was knocking. So yeah, Demon Mommy, you're totally right. It's really interesting. National level, and then fortunately, especially I think because it's so weird to be electing Supreme Court officials, that gives some level of ability for people to know. But the moment you're like, I don't know who like Judge Stramp is, one of the circuit court judges that was on the ballot, and then just down the line, it was just less and less people are familiar with it. So
Yeah,
I thought-
it can be pretty wild too, because sometimes like local ballot initiatives are ridiculously, can be really impactful, but there's no infrastructure in our current sort of political milieu for talking about things like that, because like I don't know, like the way that media is organized, it's just it really only is sort of stuff like this where locals partner with other people who are interested in keeping this stuff going, that teaches people about it. Like, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times that even on my local ballots here, I've been like, this is something even I, being politically plugged in, didn't know about, and I care about a lot, and this could change like my neighborhood or my town tomorrow. And it's really wild. It's something that is like, it's hard to tackle that, and also hard to grapple with it, but this is one way that we sort of fix stuff like that, is by having people go out and be like, hey, this is important, know about it, here's how you can act on it right away.
And one of the things too that's like doubly important, it not just raising awareness of the ballot measures, especially, but they were written by Republicans, pretty much for Republicans, and so because you're not familiar with it, the wordings on them are always to sound the best. Like, do you care about the safety of your community? If yes, then say yes to this ballot measure. And so you have to like really be able to like turn the wheels and explain, like, yeah. So when they're talking about like safety here, what they really mean is they just want to be able to like punish anyone they want that they don't like. It's not actually about safety here. It's just whatever they want it to mean. And because you just read it and it's going to talk about public health, safety, protecting the community, and like for anyone who's not educated or isn't aware of it, they're just going to be like, "Oh, of course I care about these things," and then say yes, and that's how you can end up with some pretty shitty.
I think all three of the ballot measures were like literally a single or maybe two sentences, and they all use wording like, "Would we be allowed to do necessary actions to increase public safety?" Like that was like I'm slightly paraphrasing there, but yeah, just stuff that's like a blank check to do whatever the fuck they want.
That's
Mhm.
how Michigan
Well,
banned gay
euphemism,
marriage was by saying, "Do
Yeah.
you care about respecting the institution of marriage on the ballot measure?" versus like polling for, "Do you want gay marriage to be illegal?" was like would not have won, but people were
Yeah.
confused by the language.
Yeah.
The political euphemism like on the ballot is so wild in so many areas of the US. And like I live in Washington state. So like here we have like voter guides, which I think is awesome, and I really wish that every state in the
Based.
country would do things like this. And the way that it works is that like basically the question has to be the question that's being voted on has to be stated in as neutral language as possible, and there's a whole committee of people that will select a pro argument that is displayed there with the question, and an anti argument, and then also a rebuttal to the pro and a rebuttal to the anti. So you actually get 4 arguments by people who are writing these things that you can consider, and many states have nothing like that. And also, like everyone here has mentioned, that there are a lot of states that don't give any care to the type of euphemistic language that's used in some of these, and it can be really manipulative, and it can have really devastating results. Like I mean, in my home state, for a while, like even though in the end we ended up being like the 3rd state in the United States to legalize gay marriage, because of the way that the first vote happened, we would have been the first state in the country, which it's like that I mean, it's still great to be the 3rd, but that's years off of people's life that they weren't able to have equal treatment. And like and it was because of a similar issue like that, where the way that the question is asked is so misleading as to that people just have no idea. They don't even know exactly what they're voting on. It's like it's wild. So yeah, information
kinda
like this, yeah, is important.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of see that kind of weasel language used by Judge Kelly in this election too, where, instead of ballot measures where they have intentionally vague wording, he uses basically the language of being an impartial judge and letting the states decide these issues, which basically means, oh yeah, no, I'll let abortion be banned permanently. I will allow the legislature to decimate trans people. I will not recuse myself when my donors are involved. Like, he uses very similar language to that kind of thing. So you know exactly what camp Judge Kelly is sitting in.
Real quick, just want to introduce Cam Cam from Progressive Victory on screen. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then I have to hop off to actually help my mom get home from the hospital. But I'll be back before stream ends. Just gotta yoink. I'll leave my camera on. You guys keep talking, doing the good work. Okay.
We'll keep vibing. Hey y'all, I'm Cam or Cameron, they them pronouns. I am the Progressive Victory Engagement Director, and actually gonna be leading the next 2 phone banks. So if you are outside of Wisconsin and interested in helping, hey, this is who will be walking you through it. We train everyone at the beginning of every phone bank. So if you've never done it, don't stress about it. We got you. Yeah, excited to be here. Thank y'all so much for all your help and support in driving attention towards this, and getting the word out, because that's really what Wisconsin needs right now.
Chat, remember what I said just a little bit ago when I said that like the phone banking and stuff, they set you up, they tell you, they train you in everything? They do. They really will. Like you're not like left to flounder. You're not going to be left alone. You're going to have people on your team helping you out. So, if you've never done it before and you want to participate in something that is immediately impactful, hit that exclamation phone bank in the chat and get signed up, because you'll be taught how to do everything. You'll walk away with new skills. You should do it.
100%.
Speaking of new skills, just real quick, want to point out that Progressive Victory just yesterday on Trans Day of Visibility put on like a free voice training lesson for trans folks, and it was really cool. A lot of people showed up, got a free voice training lesson, and I don't know, I just think that's pretty poggies. But I just wanted to drop that in there before I bounce.
That's super awesome.
Seriously, that's a skill that's super important. So I'm really happy that y'all are doing that.
Yeah, that was sort of a barrier that came up for a lot of our community was voice dysphoria, and a lot of what we do is phone banking, and especially with the climate now and the just insane attacks on the trans community right now, it felt like we wanted to support uh, the community and our community as best we could, and so hoping we can do that again in the future. There was great turnout, a lot of interest, so yeah, we would love to have you come join the community, maybe get some voice training lessons.
Also, if I can speak on that particular issue to the audience at large, uh, it is indeed a really, really, really rough time right now with regard to the sort of political vitriol that's being levied towards the trans community and towards trans people. And it is a scary time in a lot of ways. But something that I really want to remind people of and assure them of is that the average person is no more hateful than they've ever been, and the average person is not that hateful. These huge propaganda campaigns that are being targeted against trans people are being driven by a very select group of people, a very loud, very minority. Even among Republicans, everyday transphobia is not common, and there is not that type of hostility uh, towards people. So just remember that like even though there's these sort of like loud and heinous propaganda speakers blasting stuff all over social media and on the internet and even on the news with people like Tucker Carlson and whatever. Just remember that the average person out there does not bear that type of hostility, nor is the world as hostile to trans people as it seems. Be safe, obviously, but just remember that like there is more solidarity out there than you might think.
Yeah, and even
Just wanted to say
people
that.
for sure, and even people that are vocal, a lot of it has to do with like what anti-trans rhetoric or like trans indoctrination. But even those people, when you have conversations with them on an individual level, they're not directly hateful a lot of the time. It's like to that, it's easy because to them it's just a political position, right? It's not like their life or anything. But it does play into it being a little bit easier because when you have those conversations, they're not like just vitriolic on like an interpersonal level. A lot of time, it's just like, yeah, I just disagree with whatever it is that you're doing, but like you're living your life, and just don't come after my children.
Well, and all, yeah, and to that point, like a lot of times it's like um abstracted. They don't even necessarily connect these messaging that they're receiving to actual people. It's this sort of like vague motivating force. Like I mean, I talk on my stream a lot about like the way that moral panics work. And the way they work now, it's like often completely disconnected from the actual people involved outside of like a handful of like the people that like some of these most vicious demagogues will like fixate on. They'll pick a target that they don't like and that they're like, but the average person is not, it's not even connected. So yeah, sometimes you can actually connect with people who are otherwise sort of going with the flow of their party. And it can actually cause them to rethink their positions in a lot of ways just by having to have the moment in their head where they go, wait, like there's people involved in this that this language might be talking about that I don't think it's fair. A lot of people just never think about that. They're just hearing this messaging and they're going along with a perceived political team that they're on. So yeah,
Yeah,
just
same with anti-immigrant rhetoric as well. 100% the same thing.
Yep.
Sort of
Yeah.
it's not necessarily to change topics completely, but it made me think of it like the idea of having like to engage in public with like a vitriolic individual. I think a lot of people I've met are apprehensive to start canvassing or even to phone bank because they're afraid that they're going to get into arguments or there's going to be like a contentious situation on on the ground or over the phone, and that they don't think they'd be able to handle that, or they're scared that that's going to happen. Canvassing, that's not been my experience. Most of the people who don't like what I'm talking about, they either don't come to the door, they say, I'm not voting for that, bye. And they close the door, they just hang up on you. But I was just wondering, if the canvassers and if Cam, you could sort of speak to that to maybe alleviate this fear that I've found to be pretty common in people who I talk to about getting involved, but they're like apprehensive because of this specific thing.
Before you jump in, phone banking is easy because you can just always hang up, right? The moment you're in a situation where you're like, you know what, I'm not liking what's going on here, or I'm concerned about it, fortunately, there's just a really easy hang up button that you can click and you can move on to the next call, take a break. I've not been a part of any of the phone banking PB22 has done, but when I've done phone banking in the past and helped organize it, a lot of people, that's a really good community where if something like that pops up, you can post about it and talk to people, and they're always like really helpful and really kind and kind of working you through those feelings and experiences when they come up. But they are pretty far and few between in my experience as well. Most people are, yeah, listen, I'm just not interested, and then they keep going. Very few people are actually wanting to be scary or cause issues.
When it comes to these
Yeah.
kinds of canvassing events, you're almost always going after registered Democrats, people that have already supported the party. So the vast majority of your interactions are going to be people who are very appreciative. And you know, the amount of times where you'll try to leave and they'll go and they'll stop you and go, "Oh, I just wanted to thank you for what you're doing coming out here." These people are very kind. And even when you do run into, you know, the odd Republican, the vast majority of them are also very respectful. You know, "Oh, sorry, but you know, I've already voted for Daniel Kelly." I've had that. I had that a couple times in Wisconsin. In all the canvassing events, I've done 2 or 3 now. I think I've only heard of 1, maybe 2 cases where there was, you know, someone that was actually, you know, arguing. And even then, those people, they're not, you know, angry yelling. They're excited. They're like, "Oh, I'm so glad I get to, you know, discuss my disagreement with you." I think there was only 1 that happened in Wisconsin. It was actually Cherry. John and I and Cherry we had one of these lists where, you know, you have to drive like 10 minutes between every single house, way out in the middle of nowhere. And John and I ended up just sitting in the car for, you know, 15 minutes as Cherry just got into this impromptu debate with this random guy who, you know, was watching Tim Pool and stuff all day. And even that experience, you know, obviously it wasn't a registered Democrat, but the guy wasn't angry or yelling. You know, he was like, you know, "No, let me save you. You know, let me show you why, you know, the Democrats are so evil," and stuff like this. So even when you do run into those events, they're not scary or, you know, hostile or yelling at you. It really is, you know, good people that are sometimes just being misled. I think the vast majority of times, I don't think I've ever heard a story of someone actually being yelled at or chased away. The vast majority of the interactions are very positive.
Yeah, as it turns out, the average person in general is not all that confrontational in their day-to-day life. Most people do not like confrontation and are only willing to do it when under extreme duress. I mean, I've you know, in throughout my life, I've worked a lot of different jobs that require to be in contact with people, and that are in higher stress environments than walking around and asking people if they remembered to vote. And and I can tell you that even in those higher stress situations, people are pretty reluctant for conflict. So don't be afraid of that. Most people are really chill.
Right. And on the phone banking front, I have led a lot of phone banks, and I will say these are some of the best starter phone banks if you've never done it before. All we're trying to do right now is we're trying to target specifically Democrats, people who have voted blue in past elections, and let them know that A, this election is happening, and B, let them know who is the progressive, because it's a quote unquote nonpartisan election. There's not going to be a little R, a little D next to anyone's name, so it's all about getting out the name recognition. So we're not here to target independents or sway them or debate them. We're not here to have those types of conflicts. We're really just trying to call people and let them know, hey, this is really important. I know that you care about these values because you voted blue in the past. Please go out and vote. Here's where your polling place is. You know, you're offering people resources and information that they need to actually go out and vote. So, um, yeah, it's a great starter phone bank if you've never done this before. Very chill. Have had a lot of great experiences and great reports from people who are also first-time phone makers that joined us in the last couple weeks.
And out of curiosity, I know that we've talked about the general process of phone banking, but what would be your experiences in preparing people for phone banks? You know, is there a script? Do you have an objective in mind? You know, how do you walk us through that process so that I guess prospective phone bankers, exclamation point phone bank, know what to expect?
Yeah, so the awesome thing is, if you're coming into a phone bank, it's your first time, we spend the first like 20 to 30 minutes walking you through step by step, line by line. We walk you through why this race is important, any talking points that might come up. We walk you through that script, and then we help you figure out how to use the tools and the resources. Like any and all questions you have, we answer for you, and we spend a solid portion of the event just making sure that everyone's on the same page. Um, and, if anything comes up, if there are any questions throughout the event, I'm on the call the entire time. Usually, someone else will be with me, and we are answering questions in chat. You can unmute on the Zoom. And we try to all stay in community and just in connection while we're making these calls and going through it. So we're all going through it together. Um, but truly, it's no prereqs required, no prior training or anything. You can walk in the door first thing, and we will train you and give you every piece of information you need.
Great. I was gonna say the most contentious interaction I've ever had. Well, I've never had an issue while phone banking, but door knocking was just the other day. I had someone yell, "It's illegal for you to walk up my steps." I was like, "Well, I've gone to law school and I know the for a fact that that's not true, but okay." But like, it really is like a, especially because you're targeting people who are likely to vote for that candidate, or if it's an issue thing, who likely support that issue. You know, they're going to be receptive. But yeah, thank you for answering those questions, because I have noticed that that's a lot of people's like apprehension, or also they're like nervous about going there and not knowing anybody, which I've always found you know the canvassing community to be super welcoming, and like everyone's super excited to be there and happy to have you there. But like, what's for the canvassers, what's been your experience so far? I know you brought friends with you, so it's been like fun hanging out with your friends, but like, what's just to so the people know the energy in Wisconsin.
Both campus events I've gone to, I was going completely solo, so I didn't bring any friends, but I ended up making a lot along the way. And it was actually really fun to reconnect with some of the people I met down in Georgia and Wisconsin. It really is just a super positive community. There's people that are just looking for friends to hang out with. I couldn't, I've lost track of the number of times, especially in Destiny's event, just because it was so big and there were so many people. People just randomly walking up and introducing themselves, and bringing board games or card games, or going out to Waffle House, or just anything they could get their hands on. It really is a super positive community, and my experience was the exact same in Wisconsin. It was just a bunch of people being super friendly, trying to find some way to blow off of their steam after a long day of canvassing in the bitter cold, and getting together. So it's super positive, and it's a great environment to meet people and make friends.
It also really helps too that most of the people share similar interests, right? Like we all come from online politics or online gaming or those spaces. Oftentimes, you may even have chatted with a lot of the people that are at these events, also canvassing, but you just have never been able to put a face to the name kind of situation. So it's totally right. Everyone's super welcoming. There's a lot of people. I remember at the Georgia canvassing event with the 300 people. There was like gym day. There were like a bunch of gym bros that were like all getting together to go work out every single morning at like 6 or 5 in the morning, and that was like a really cool experience. There were a bunch of people watching college football that was going on. There were other people playing board games. There was people doing karaoke. There's people playing Smash. Like at a lot of these events, you're gonna find people that will have interests, and or you can explore new interests too with people that are knowledgeable about it.
I think something that gets understated about stuff like this is what y'all are talking about right now, which is the connections that are made, because as we all know, an election is but temporary, but the connections that we make last a lot longer than that, and those networks become very powerful, and they can roll over to future struggles. And I think it's especially important. It's something that I spend a lot of time when I'm talking about politics, trying to encourage people to build lasting connections. Because I think one of the things that sort of maybe this has always been a problem. Maybe it's something that's unique to the internet era, but I think there's a lot of sort of like surface level connections that people make. We cross by each other on social media, or see each other in a chat and say a few words here and there. But when you go out in the real world and make a connection with somebody, you make friends, you make real connections that have depth, and those connections can not only provide you sort of social fulfillment, but they can be the sort of the sort of ground for future friendships, relationships, partnerships, projects, all kinds of things. And I think that any opportunity that you have to connect with one another and make like solid connections that aren't just passing by each other on the internet is really really important. And this type of thing is exactly that type of thing, especially because there's so much motivation going into a election like this one. There are stakes. There's a lot of valuable things going on here, so it forges good connections, in my opinion.
Yeah. And just to that point, I know that there's like a lot of young people engaged in online politics who want to work in politics as a career. That's what they want to do with their lives. And having the experience canvassing is the first step in the door to work in politics because, as we all know, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And you get to make all these great connections with people who work in that space, who, once you get a lot of experience doing this, you graduate from school, whatever it is you're doing, you say, okay, I want to start doing this as a job. Now you have contacts that you can reach out to and say, hey, are there any openings, at this organization? Or, I see this race is coming up. I know you're involved with this candidate. Are there any positions open? And just like having those connections is going to make your transition into working in politics versus volunteering in politics so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, there's great experience to be gained as well. One of our main organizers in Wisconsin, Sam, actually went on to get a job with the Wisconsin Democrats through, after doing organizing with us and making those connections. Um, and there's a lot that can be gained, especially if you're someone like me who like I am down in a red state. I am in deep South Louisiana. And it's kind of when you're in certain places, you feel like you're just surrounded by conservatism. You think there's no progressives near you. But leading up to the Georgia runoff, I actually drove down to Georgia. Um, and I was trying to find people, in my area to come with me, and I didn't even realize there was someone who was literally 10 minutes down the road in PV. Now we're friends, and it's like I didn't even know that all these different progressives were in my state, in my city, in my town, in my neighborhood. And we drove down to Georgia together, and now it's like lifelong friends, friend that you're gonna have down the road, like that you never would have come across. So I feel like there's a lot of great connections and community that can be built here.
Yeah, and something else I want to emphasize as well, and PV22 is really good with this, but it happened a couple times in Wisconsin and some other places where some people get a little bit concerned because there's internet drama and political drama and arguments. Like at the end of the day, none of that matters to the canvassers and the people. Like if you're willing to go out to Wisconsin and go door knocking in 17-degree weather, like you are my sibling in Christ, regardless of whether you're a Demon Monoma fan or a Vosh fan or any fan, right? Like that's what's more important is making sure that we're actually doing the good work out there. And don't don't be concerned. There was one person that came up that was like really hesitant about mentioning how they came to be aware about this and like what community. I was like, listen, nobody here cares. We just want you to make sure you're having a good time. You need any help, we're more than happy to help you. Here, come join us at this table. We're talking about Avatar, or we're talking about some other random stuff and getting them involved. So don't be concerned just because you might be fans or be concerned about some communities not getting along. Everyone's getting along while we're canvassing. So
Yeah, I
I
find
mean,
that
and honestly, that melts my heart.
yeah, I was gonna say most of that stuff tends to fall away once you get off Twitter. Uh, most of the time, at least.
on
Not
that
all, not
Brianna
all
Wu
the time.
train, the Wu train.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, and that's the really nice thing that I see here is that there are people from these different communities who are actually coming together to make a real change because at the end of the day, people are complicated. People are strange. People have their likes and dislikes, but for a concerted effort like this, this is the great unifier. This is the thing that brings all of us together to really make a difference, not only in our communities that we come from respectively, but, just in the bigger picture, because there's always a bigger picture with these things. I always tell my clients to see the bigger picture when I'm helping them with legal matters. And it's the same thing with politics. there's always a larger goal that you're working towards. And if you lose sight of that through petty squabbles, then that's where you start to fall apart. So, yeah, this just makes me really happy.
Also,
think
you
too,
you know
also,
who
like,
doesn't give a shit about the online drama? The 45-year-old man whose door you're knocking on right now to get him to vote in
Yep,
the Supreme
100%.
Court race. You know who doesn't know who Destiny is? The man you need to go to get to the polls.
Exactly.
I tend to think that like solid social connections override most of the sort of secondhand parasocial whatever that forms online when you're out there working on an actual project with people. The random sort of perceived disagreements that you might have with one community, broad community, or vague cloud of people tend to fall by the wayside. And I think it's interesting what Cam brought up about like discovering like somebody in a state that you didn't think you had like a lot of allies in, and finding somebody who's close to you and connected. I mean, I think that's a really good point too, is that when people come together for projects like this, you walk away with a stronger understanding of where you stand, wherever you're coming from as well, which can be really important. Yeah, like especially if you're in like a place that's sort of like politically hostile territory. Like if you're in some of these states that are really swinging hard to the right, it's more important than ever that you make connections to the allies that are there, the people who are there and willing to work with you on things. Um, and yeah, and sometimes it's really hard, but events like this and other similar things to this can be the sort of the catalyst that starts that connection, or the meeting point, the nexus by which you find other people like that. And that's really important.
Welcome to
Well, well,
SIA.
well.
What's going
Welcome.
on, people?
King Ruminate.
Matthew, Flow Trace, good to see you guys, and
Great to
obviously
see you, man.
everybody else.
Thank you so much, Matthew and Flotrace, for joining us and for talking a little bit about your experience canvassing. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah, no
anytime.
problem. Happy.
Now that they're gone, we can tell embarrassing stories about their canvassing experiences too. All the salacious
Saya,
things.
don't make me. I've got all the secret memes on you. Don't make me.
No, don't do it. Right, he bought my silence successfully.
Have a good one, everyone.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.
Have a beautiful night, y'all.
I'm gonna go. It's sunset, so I'm gonna go break my fast, but I'll be back after I eat something. Have
Wait a
something to
minute.
drink.
So as soon as I show up, 3 people dip. Is that how it's gonna be? Really?
Wow.
I'm not leaving.
I gotta go break my fast. We never hear from her again. She just, all right, be that way.
Well, I'll stick
That's
around.
the world
I
of the
do have a little
pondering
bit longer.
politics.
I probably have another 15 to 20 minutes or so before I gotta go get back to my
Really,
stuff.
Demon Mama? So it's gonna be a 4th person?
Might be. Well, I did say 15 or 20 minutes, which in internet time is basically like forever.
So actually, there's an opportunity here to get you here even longer. Really, is it the 15, 20 minutes are flexible.
Yeah, 15 to 20 minutes is relatively flexible.
Gotcha. Well, hey
If I'm
everybody.
I mean,
feel generous.
15 to 20 minutes online is like 7 hours in the meat world. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm
The
talking
what
about.
world?
It's like Meat World.
The meat world where you touch grass or do things outside. Mythical
I've
place.
never heard that expression. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced that's not an expression. I don't think that's real.
To be fair, some people say meat space and not necessarily.
I'm not
meat.
sure that's I'm not sure that's much better either. I guess my mind goes to
I
like
think
different
it is.
places.
I mean, I will say meat world does imply that the world is made of meat, which I don't know that it is.
I don't feel like that's
It's
scientifically
mostly
accurate.
organic material.
Yes.
I mean, okay, look, y'all. My
No,
brain's all
listen.
messed up.
No, I mean, listen, we can litigate the rhetorical value of meat world and meat space, I guess, some other time. So, what's going on, people? Are we still talking about Wisconsin?
We are.
Don't
In
litigate
fact,
with a
I think in
litigator.
good time. I don't wanna overstep my bounds. But for those of you who are in chat, you should type exclamation phone bank or exclamation canvas right now if you are interested in getting involved. It's incredibly easy to get involved in this incredibly important election. This is a 10 years of Wisconsin's future are on the line in this particular one. to my audience, this is what we would call a very strategic vote, okay? This is one of those things where you want to get involved no matter your principled stance, whether you're an electoralist or a non-electoralist. By a pure strategy mind, you want this election to go in your favor. So this is one of the opportunities you have. Tomorrow is the big day where they need the most people. And like we've been discussing this entire time, most of what is most valuable about canvassing and phone banking is not your need to convince anybody, but rather just acting as a relevant information relay. People need to know that the vote is coming. People need to know where they can go vote. People need to know that it's tomorrow and the next day. I think, right? The votes are actually happening on my
April
dates. Might not
4th.
be perfect. This
April
is why,
4th.
you see,
Mhm.
this is where a canvasser would be able to help me right now. April 4th is when the actual election is happening. Tomorrow is the event where people are going out to canvass. There we have it. But that's the
Yes.
type of stuff that's really important. And again, this is one of those very strategic votes where, for the people of Wisconsin and for the future of the country as a whole, we don't want to lose a 10-year judicial position. So get out there, get involved, phone bank for a few hours, and you will assuredly have an impact on this important election.
100%. The mother of demons is correct, especially when she emphasizes the fact that it's not even just Wisconsin. Like, the however many millions of people in Wisconsin, certainly they have more direct skin in the game. But the fact of the matter is, this election has national implications. Wisconsin's a battleground state. 10 electoral votes in 2020. President Trump attempted to steal Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes shamelessly, nakedly, from Joe Biden. And it was because of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. One conservative justice had a brief moment, there was like a lunar eclipse or something, had a brief flash of conscience and decided, hey, maybe we shouldn't try to like overturn democracy. And that's the only reason that President
Wow.
Trump's attempt to steal Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes wasn't successful. And the asshole who is currently running for to take the retiring judge's place, the conservative Daniel Kelly, he was involved in another attempt to steal the 10 electoral votes from President Biden. He was paid six figures to do it. This man is corrupt. He's unethical. So it's not just Wisconsin, folks. It's all the other 49 states too. And like Demon Mama said, it's a 10-year term, right? So these people are in here for a while. I don't even
wild.
want to fathom how old
Wasn't
I'll
it
be
like
in 10 years.
It was like a two vote difference, right? It was a
One vote.
four. Was
It
only
was a
one
one vote.
It was
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
because there's
it was a
seven.
vote of 4
Yeah.
to 3.
4-3. Oh my
Yeah.
god, I misread
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
literal 4-3 for the election fraud thing.
Right.
For that nonsense, which we know was beyond bunk, and came down to a 4-3. That's how
Yeah.
strategic I'm saying when I say this is a strategic one.
Yeah.
That's how close that case was when Donald Trump's
Yeah.
argument was essentially like, well, this is stupid. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It came down to one vote.
Yep.
It's not good, folks.
That's bad.
Throwing
That's bad.
away the votes of 200,000 voters, 200,000 people who went out, made their voices heard, and voted, that would have been thrown away if just like this one Republican didn't have a conscience that day. And I don't know that I want to like bet on that in 2024.
I don't think that's a
don't
good
wanna-
bet to have.
Yeah,
I don't think
No.
so.
my gambling, my poor heart is feeling, even my risky heart is feeling so weak for 2024. I'm like, ooh, it's getting uncomfy in the United States. of
Demon Mama
America.
says she'll play roulette and blackjack, but she won't take those odds. She
Not
won't
gonna
do
take
that.
those odds. No,
Yeah.
let's play it safe. Let's play it strategic. Let's win this stuff and make sure that because I mean, on a broad scale, I mean, there's so much we could talk about. I mentioned earlier, like that there's so many states that are like swinging into this direction. That's just it's people talk about polarization and whatever, but I think that's too abstract. Like we have some states that are just completely verging into a totally different understanding of civil rights, a totally different understanding of basic electoral function. States that are stomping their feet and saying no, like
Florida.
this clearly, yeah, Florida or Florida's the best example, where it's just like there is a genuine attempt to just install the narrative of the Trump narrative in these states, and it's not good. It's like no matter how you slice it or where you stand, unless you're in line with the Trump people, this is not good for you or for the future of anything that anyone's trying to do. It is a highly toxic and also highly unjust situation. So these, so yeah, it's
Yeah,
struggle
the
like these is
Republicans'
really important.
current understanding of civil rights that you're talking about, they're veering into, is that at least 4 of you on this panel shouldn't have any. That's their understanding of it. And maybe even Kevin
Yeah.
because he's wearing a fez. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, even Republicans might end up targeting him as well.
Yeah,
As a
it's
straight white guy, I'm the only one who will be safe under Republican rule, and that's not good.
yeah, it's well, and uh well, and let's just say they don't take political dissent very well either. So
Right.
if you don't agree with their politics, then you might be in trouble too. It's
Shit,
one of those
Yeah.
I might need to take my cam off. That's a good point. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
Yeah.
the treadmill
Yeah.
of like who they decide to target. It always starts with the ones that are the easiest target, and then they pick a new one. It's very opportunistic, and we know what the world of Donald Trump and his cronies looks like. We know what they want from the world. We saw what he tried to do when he was in office, and sometimes what he failed to do, but we know what they've been talking about. It doesn't take long to listen to one of his speeches where he talks with glowing applause about how he wants to instate a fast track to death penalty for low level drug dealers. Like that is a worldview that is it's not just intolerable to like the far left. This is a world that is hostile to anyone who's not a Trumper. And yeah, so the stakes are high, and it's I don't know. On one hand, I'm very encouraged that there are so many people. Like I'm even just looking at the various chats now. There's so many people who are interested and who are interested in getting involved in one way or another, regardless of the different philosophies of how you should get politically involved. It's really encouraging that a lot of people are actually taking interest. But on the other hand, we still have a long way to go. So I want to encourage people to get connected, even if like the first step for you is I want to go canvas and meet people and get an idea for how these things work, and you go on to other things. I mean, uh, people who watch my show will probably know, like, I've been involved in a lot of, protests. I've been involved in a lot of direct action, like food delivery, stuff like that. The type of stuff that I like is that type of thing. And that's what I tend to be involved in. And that's one way of affecting the world.
Demon
But
Mama, my understanding is that protests usually require some sort of combative energy. Are you sure you have that combative energy for protests?
I do have a little bit of combative energy. As a demon, I do. I'm just a little bit of a spicy individual sometimes.
All right, touche.
Cool. I'm cool. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that. I know. Some people think
Queen
that
of Hell knows when to burn people to a crisp.
exactly. You gotta know. You gotta know that there's a time and a place to stand strong, and I believe very much in standing up for what's right, and I believe very much in fighting very hard for liberty and for the thriving of the people in this country. And
Speaking of liberty and the thriving of the people in this country, and I'm so sorry to interrupt because I don't
What?
want to be a serial interrupter, but if you want to participate, exclamation point canvas, exclamation point phone bank, or go to progressivevictory.win in order to volunteer.
You can also go to progress.win. Much quicker.
Yes.
progress,
Yes.
that's a
Fewer
snappy
letters.
one. I like that.
Right? Progress.win. Yeah, and you don't have to be spicy to phone bank. You don't have to be spicy to canvas either, but
As a matter of fact, you shouldn't be, I think.
preferable actually, yes.
Yeah.
But you
I'll
don't
be
have
You
you
guys
don't need you don't need any prior knowledge, any prior training. You can show up first time brand new. We will walk you through everything, give you all the tools that you need, and we will be there on the call the entire event. If anything pops up, if you need any help troubleshooting, um, that's why we're there. And if you're worried you're not going to see any familiar faces, here's one. I will be leading our phone bank tomorrow and Monday. So if you want to come hang out, please do. I would love to chat with y'all.
See, I told you. No need to be afraid. In fact, you just spent time with the person who will teach you tomorrow. It's incredible.
Yeah, and even canvassing, I know because I've not done the phone banking, but I have done canvassing, and I'll say that obvious. So I'm an extrovert, so it was pretty like low key investment for me. But there were people who canvassed with us in the weekend that I was there. Most of them described themselves as introverts. They said that they never imagined that they would feel the call or feel compelled to do something like this, and they did. And I didn't hear a single horror story, not one bad reaction. And as I mentioned in the last stream that we did, in my case personally, the most positive interaction, like the most memorably positive interaction I had, was with a conservative who answered the door. It wasn't even a Democrat or a liberal. So with canvassing, they try to give you curated lists. Wisconsin makes it a bit tricky because there's no party affiliation when you register to vote. But they're still pretty reliable lists, right? Excuse me, because what they're trying to do is not they're trying not we're not trying to get you out to persuade Republicans to vote Democrat. What we're trying to do is basically maximize the left-leaning or Democratic-leaning vote, right? That's what we're trying to do. So the burden is relatively lower. We're trying to get you in front of people who are predisposed to hear what you have to say in the first place. But every now and then, you'll run into people because either the lists haven't been updated or they've moved or whatnot. I ran into a situation where I went to a door, had the person's name, was told that they were Democrat, but her husband answered the door, and he's apparently a Republican. And it was the longest conversation I had because the conversations are usually very brief. This is not a 60-minute debate or anything like that. It's usually, if you get somebody to answer the door, I'm going to say 30 seconds to a minute. And then you dip, you move on to the next door because you don't want to waste their time either. And they probably have something else they want to do. This was a 5 to 10 minute conversation, and there were laughs. And, basically we shook hands at the end of the day and we politely wished that the other one loses, on April 4th. And we walked away. He didn't, threaten me. He didn't, raise his voice or anything. It was a really nice, memorable back and forth. So any anxiety that you may have about something like that, don't worry about it.
So wait, are you telling me that he treated you like a human being? He didn't try to beat you up or take your lunch money?
No, he didn't.
Amazing.
That's good. That's good because I didn't have any lunch money to begin with. Okay, listen, I had to spend my budget wisely. Right.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm also very short, so he could have taken me and like shaken like my pockets, like held me upside down, but just like
That
dust
didn't happen.
bunnies would have come out.
Clear.
But no, he didn't. He was very polite. And again, it helped that I didn't treat it like a debate. Like he said some things about Judge Protasewicz that I thought were off the mark, that she was overly political, and I'm thinking, buddy, he's overly political. Let's talk about your guy. Like, really, you want to? But I didn't, whereas that might have been appropriate in a discussion like this, if it were like a debate or an even informal debate. I didn't feel the need to go, no, like your guy sucks. You just kind of like, it's like conversational jujitsu. You know what I mean? You duck and weave and you try to read the room and vibe with the person. And that was it.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll even forget that April 4th is the election, but I doubt it.
And I could also say, you mentioned that you're sort of like naturally extroverted. I am somebody who, believe it or not, despite being a streamer who streams to hundreds of people, I am actually a pretty naturally introverted person. Streaming kind of changes the calculus a little bit because I'm in my comfy studio and I don't have people at me.
You mean hell? You're in hell, right? It's not. You're
Yes,
saying
exactly.
Or
It's
okay,
a
okay,
comfy
yeah.
studio in hell.
All right, touche.
I many years ago I decided that I wanted to sort of learn the skills that would be necessary for me to participate in the fields and the work that is normally draws the attention of the the natural extrovert types. And you can learn those skills. I learned those skills, and it actually made me stronger as a person and more confident as a person in general. To the degree that I'm able to do work like this, that I feel not just that I am able to, but I like it. I like streaming, even if I normally tend to like to sit in my own space and read and think to myself and enjoy a mostly private life for that part.
So it made your
And
infernal powers grow, is what you're saying.
it
Like,
did. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
It truly empowered me, and I would never have become the queen of hell if it wasn't for being able to step out. And to be fair, things like this, where you have a very a very direct scope of what you're trying to accomplish are the perfect sort of thing to start learning those skills. Even if you don't decide to someday become a streamer or to do what I did and like go really hard and like try to learn how to do sales and all that stuff that I did, earlier in my 20s, you can learn some of the skills that will make you feel stronger as a person and feel more confident in general. It's really cool. And stuff like this where there's a lot of structure and where you know exactly what your goal is going from door to door, or if you're phone banking call to call, really good for that sort of thing.
I
Plus
mean,
for a good
I
price.
resonate. Yeah, I resonate with that so much because, going into law school, I was a very introverted guy who did not know he was on the spectrum. I only learned that like a couple years after getting out of law school, but I was terrified of like just speaking to people. I was very socially anxious growing up, so I had no idea how to go into a natural human discussion at that point. But when I basically volunteered to do canvassing work and phone banking during that time, it pulled me out of my shell and I got to speak with a lot more people than I thought I would. And honestly, I gotta say, like working those campaigns actually helped me actually develop people skills and communicate in a better way, where it helped me not only be a better communicator, but a better attorney. And so that helped me immensely because you have to know how to talk to people and kind of read the room when you're doing my kind of work. So this is basically just to say same with what Demon Mama was saying, and same with what everybody else here is saying, where this kind of stuff not only helps you get into a great community of people and work for a great cause, but it can also help you improve yourself as a person.
Mhm.
I should also say, because Kevin probably hasn't said it, we are all being billed at this very moment. He is an attorney. We're being billed right now.
Who's the
Well,
bill? Who's
yes.
getting the bill? I'm not paying the bill.
Well, look, since Riverboat
Good luck
Jack isn't
finding my
here, I'm gonna
mailbox.
just. Well, I mean, I'm just gonna send the bill to Riverboat Jack because she's not here to tell me not to. So there
Yeah,
we
nose
go.
goes.
True. Yeah, the it is being hosted. So
That's
hosted
true.
by Jack, so
Riverboat Jack,
Exactly,
if you
host
object
pays.
to paying the bill, just say something right now. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So Cam,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. Like I don't think you and I have met before. So you do the phone banking? And hi, by the way.
Yes. Hi. I am Cameron, Cam, whichever, whatever. They them pronouns. I am Progressive Victory's engagement director, and have been helping to lead the phone banks. So we have all of our Wisconsin organizers are going to be on the ground doing the stuff, meeting Janet Protasewicz tomorrow. So I am filling in to lead the phone bank, and then we had some requests for a Monday phone bank. So I said, you know what? I can make it happen. We're adding one on Monday, and I will be leading that one as well.
That's
Cool.
really
Sweet.
awesome. So
What
that
time
means
is that
there's 2
happening?
days for those of you in chat. You have 2 days to participate, right? Because it's Saturday. Yeah. So tomorrow and Monday, if you want to get involved with the phone banking side, which is very valuable. So consider exclamation phone banking, sign up, go out of your shell, and help a major victory in Wisconsin.
Emerge from the cocoon of your shyness into a majestic democratic butterfly.
True.
That's my butterfly. Or maybe it's like this. I don't know. I don't know animals.
Praise the sun.
I think there's like multiple flight patterns for butterflies, to be fair. I don't think they
There you
only
go.
fly in one way. So
Fly your own way. Join the phone bank.
yeah.
Exactly.
Tomorrow's is going to be at 1 Central, and on Monday it's going to be at 6 Central. Don't make me do time zone math. I do that way too much.
No,
It's-
so is it something where people are required to be there for a certain period of time? And I already know the answer, but it would be reassuring coming from you.
No. So please join at the start, because if you are new, we want to make sure that we can run you through the training and get you all the resources and background knowledge that you need to be successful. But if you phone bank for an hour and have to dip, life happens, something comes up. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm not going to give you an F in phone banking. Like, you did an hour's worth of phone banking. You talked to voters. It's better than 0 hours. We love to have people hang out and stay for the whole event. We get to debrief at the end and just like share stories and talk about our experience and sort of process the event together, which is a really great time. You get to meet a lot of cool people in the community. But totally understand if you've got to head out early. It happens.
See that
And
flexibility, folks? I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Like they set you up with training. You know, they've got experts on hand. That was the other thing too, again, about the canvassing thing that I think helped the introverts so much is because they felt truly supported. You know, it's not like you were just you touched down in the Airbnb, you know, were shoved literature like pamphlets and whatever in your hand and then just told to, you know, pick a road, right? There was so much organization to it. And, you know, you excuse me. By the way, I'm recovering from the flu, so if I like go into a coughing fit or tip over, don't
I'm
worry
sorry.
about it. It's
Flu sucks.
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
right. I appreciate it. But like you are so prepared. You were so supported. And that was the case for Progressive Victory, for Progress Libs. You have your peers to lean on as well. And if you feel like you end up having like an awkward encounter, because I know I've like misspoken before too. I remember at one point I Judge Protasevich's last name is a mouthful. And so I think I called her Proto Sandwich at one point, like because I was like struggling, and like you could just see it on the person's face. They're like, "I saw you say that. I heard you say that." Like you, but it's okay because there's always another door where you can get it
Oh my
right.
god.
Yeah,
And also, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
People missay things all
Yeah.
the time. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Trust from this one. Trust me, I put myself on camera for upwards of 8 hours some streams, and I mess up words all the time. And a lot of times they're much more embarrassing, especially when people clip them so that it's just me saying something that I didn't even say over and over and over again because they cut off the rest of the word. Like,
Mhm.
but you know, that's the nice one.
Mhm.
I'm not saying the ones that other people do when they make me say worse things. So just think you'll never have that level of embarrassment because you're just talking to people in their doors. So
Right.
Yeah, no one's recording you, no one is grading you, and also I feel like that person who heard you say proto sandwich is probably going to remember that there's an
Yeah.
election. They're going to remember that interaction. So
Yeah.
ultimately, maybe more effective? Question mark.
That's right.
maybe, yeah.
Absolutely. That may have netted us one more vote. No, I mean it's 100% like you end up laughing at things. Like I said, knock on wood. I certainly didn't have one, but I didn't hear about any genuinely negative experience from any of the canvassers. So, um, I don't know. It was a really positive experience, and that was in 17-degree weather. Can't emphasize that enough. Like even despite the relatively inclement conditions, it felt productive. We were all excited to do it. It was almost like a competition, as a matter of fact. I remember like some of the carpool groups, they were like, let's see how many lists we can do versus how many, you know what I mean? Like, because of course you're and you know, they're a bunch of gamers and people like that, so there's always like a competitive edge to kind of keep things interesting. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Um, Plus another thing, like Cam mentioned, that like, you know, you show up for the beginning and, you know, if it's something you're nervous about or whatever, plan for an hour, and then once you get there, you might end up deciding to stay longer. I mean, I do this type of stuff, you know, time commitments for, you know, going on people's shows all the time, and even today I have decided to stay longer because I've been having a great time. So you never know when you're going to have an awesome time and when you're going to feel productive and you're going to feel like you're doing a cool thing. And it can be, you know, reassuring to know that you don't have any like hard commitment. There's nothing that makes you stay there all day. You might just decide you want to because you feel like you're making progress, which is an awesome feeling. And you know, you don't always get to feel that sometimes, especially if like I don't know, you don't participate in stuff like this often. You don't get to feel like you're a part of a project all that often. So it's pretty
That's
cool
a
to
really
have
big
it.
one that I found was really rewarding. So I'd done some canvassing when I lived in Kentucky for Andy Bashir, who was running for Attorney General at the time. He has since become governor. He is a superb governor. He is the one relative roadblock to the regressive Republican Party in Kentucky. Now they have a supermajority, so they can override any of his vetoes, unfortunately. But he's a hell of a leader, a very intelligent, empathetic man. And I was a poli sci major in college, and I'm always a C-SPAN geek to this day. I can just binge. I work from home, so I can binge hours of C-SPAN in the background. Where a lot of people will stream or listen to streams of like Twitch poll drama, you know, the latest this person, that person. For me, it's like, you know, does the motion carry? You know, it's stuff like that. But it felt awesome to actually say I put boots on the ground and contributed in, you know, maybe some small way, but to do that, I wasn't just talking about it. You know, not that there's anything wrong with talking about it. You know, you got, you know, major political commentators who are using their platform, like people like Vosh and whoever else, to get the word out. But it's also a different way to contribute to when you do the phone banking or you participate in the canvassing. It adds, I don't know, it feels like now you have skin in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that was something that like in all of the like in basically every real world political event that I've been party to, or you know, even certain types of online events that are of a different structure, like doing a stream where you're talking about something, or participating in a stream where you're, you know, bouncing around on whatever entertainment thing, or even political debates. That's one thing, but there's a type of involvement that comes from like you said, getting skin in the game, where it's like, I went out and did this, I got to see the direct impact of my actions on the world. It's a great feeling. It's the bloomer fuel that people talk about. It's the thing that makes you feel like the world isn't as bad of a place as it was before you did whatever you did. Sometimes participating in like these sort of online fundraisers for people for projects that are like can be one of those. But I mean, for me, the one I always think of was like what I mentioned before. During COVID, I you know, helped deliver food with a local mutual aid group, and that was like it was like one of the most you know, in like politically involved things. This is a group that is very political, but their purpose is to deliver food for people. And we were taking food to people's houses who needed food. And to bring them something that they needed to that in that way was there is no way that there's no like there's no distance between you and what you're doing, and it feels wild to be a part of something else like that. And it's a really 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 inspiring feeling that will make it easier to do other things in the future. But yeah, that what you were mentioning there about like having skin in the game really is a game changer. It adds a level of depth that you just don't get from just being a part of a chat or whatever.
Right.
Which of course I love streaming and I love watching streams. Those are awesome things that are really cool to do all the time. I'm not saying they're a bad thing, but there is a level of involvement difference that matters and that feels good to participate.
Especially when it's made as easy as the phone banking and canvassing have been, you know, with the resources and the experts and the training that Progressive Victory and Progress Libs will put at your disposal. I mean, so again, they really do set you up for success. You're not like out on a limb. You're really not. And by the way, again, I can only speak for the canvassing thing. But again, I'm an extrovert, but like for me, it's always, I felt that it was always easier to canvas, even though like I know it seems counterintuitive, but because when you do have a conversation with somebody, or there's body language, there's face-to-face contact, you know what I mean? Like it feels, I don't want to say intimate, but I am going to say intimate. Like there's a credibility and an intimacy there. So even if even if you're thinking, man, I'll phone bank, I would love to canvas, but I don't know, it seems even harder. I found that it's not. Like, I feel like I would personally, with my disposition, struggle more with, you know, just over the phone, right? Because there are fewer ways to engage. I know for most people it's the opposite. But again, if you're in a position to canvas, I would encourage you. I think that you would probably have a more rewarding experience than you expect.
Yeah, the tangibility is a big deal. Even, you know, like I said, speaking from sort of the opposite side of the extrovert introvert thing,
Hmm.
you know, I tend to like my level of distance, but there is no ifs, ands, or buts about the fact that the tangibility of an experience Not to mention just like not to sound all poetic, but like everybody talks about touching grass, everything, but like have you
In
been
the meat world,
outside
you mean?
in
In the
the
meat
in the meat
space?
space, in the meat world?
Yes,
If
in
you
the
go
meat
out there,
dimension.
it's especially, not to say that people don't go outside, but it's the end of winter, spring is starting to happen. Have you remembered how nice it is to be outside? Because it is really nice. And when you're out there, you become more familiar with a new place. If it's someplace like if you're canvassing a neighborhood you've never been, you're not in normally, or if it's a place that you are from, but you don't spend a lot of time walking around, you gain a new level of, like you said, intimacy with that space, and it is nice in and of itself. In addition, all of this is just added benefits to the fact that you're participating in an incredibly important electoral
Sure.
struggle right now. But you get
Exposure to
these
sunlight,
personal
vitamin D,
benefits.
so it'll reduce rates
Yeah,
of
you get to hear
depression,
the
get your
birds, you
steps
get to see the
in.
flowers,
Yeah.
yeah, everything. There's so
I,
much.
I've been
There's like,
sick, so I've been quarantined. But just today, so I'm in North Carolina. The weather's pretty nice here. It was like 76
oh, cool.
degrees. I made myself go outside, and I frolicked for the first time in a week.
Doesn't
know?
it feel nice? It
It
feels
was.
great.
Hey, there
It
you
And
was.
you know
go.
what? If you're torn between canvassing and phone banking, there's time for both. You can go tomorrow if you're in Wisconsin or the surrounding areas, and you can get to know our canvassing team on the ground. You can meet the candidate. You can like shake Judge Janet Protasewicz' hand and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go knock some doors for you." And then if you wanted to compare it to phone banking, join me on Monday, 6 p.m. Central. We're gonna be making some calls. So, wow,
There you
whole
And
go.
you
bunch
know
of new
what?
It's not mutually
experiences.
exclusive.
Yeah, exactly. Double down and get double the experience, and then you'll be basically the equivalent of like, the Antifa super soldiers. That's what you'll be after that. And the next time it comes around, people will be like, "Oh, one of the elites is here," and you'll be like, "Yeah, I've done phone banking and canvassing."
And then
See?
there'd be like collective gasps. The lights will dim. There's like a
You get like
spotlight
you
on
come
you.
in with like badges.
Everyone will salute you. You automatically walk in slow motion. Your sunglasses will show on. AC/DC's Back in Black
Love
starts
it.
playing. It's like a whole thing. It's a whole vibe. Have we talked about
Oh,
how
that's why
awful
people walk in slow motion.
100%?
Sorry, I thought it was just the anemia.
No, it both. It can be both. It can be both. I feel like
I'm so sorry.
Get your iron, folks. Get your iron.
100%. I feel like if you are anemic and you're walking in slow
trying.
motion, if you'll just add Back in Black, like you just play it like from your phone speaker in your back pocket, it just makes it 10 times cooler.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Have we
Tough Day
talked
in
about
Court
how?
turns into a awesome strut. But I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I'll shut my big mouth
No, no,
now.
no, it's okay. No, no, please don't. Have we talked about how awful Daniel Kelly is? Like,
Not for a
obviously I wasn't
while,
here for
not
the whole
a while.
stream.
It was the
Okay.
beginning. But I'm sure. I mean, even just looking at the chat, the amount of people in chat, I imagine there's a number of people who've tuned in since the beginning, and it wouldn't hurt to express the severity of the situation.
Let's fucking go.
This dude
Do it.
is awful, just awful. Okay, so Daniel Kelly was on the Wisconsin Supreme Court in 2016 as a vacancy fill, right? So I think it was a Republican governor. Oh, what's his name? Andrew Scott, Scott something.
Scott
Anyway,
Walker.
Scott Walker. Thank you, Governor Walker, who, by the way, is also just terrible. The things that he did to that state to set it
Scott
up for
Dingleberry.
failure. It was ridiculous. So anyway, there was a vacancy on the Supreme Court, and Governor Walker put Judge Kelly onto the Supreme Court. He was basically just from what I understand, he was a practicing attorney at the time, but it wasn't like he was like a circuit court judge or anything like that. So Walker puts him on the Supreme Court to fill this vacancy. Then he runs for re-election in 2020 and loses. Okay, loses to a liberal justice. I think Justice Karfofsky or something like that. Anyway, the bottom line is
Not sure.
the 4 years he was on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, this dude was terrible, okay? Not only before he got on the Supreme Court did he say things like affirmative action and slavery, they basically come from the same racist taproot. They're both about discrimination. Like, he compared race or slavery with affirmative action. They're the same thing. He said, of course, that women exercising the right to abortion, that's murder, that's homicide. He protested, or he not like physically protested, but he decried the Obergefell decision in 2015, which legalized federal protections for gay marriage. This guy is a regressive conservative as it gets. When he was on the Supreme Court from 2016 to 2020, he presided, along with the 6 other justices, over at least 6 cases in which the groups that were before him had ties to him. He did not recuse himself, and in all 6 cases, he sided in their favor. This man, morally, ethically, like every which way from every vector, is corrupt and regressively conservative. And when he wasn't on the Supreme Court in 2020, when he lost his election, he was hired by the Wisconsin Republican Party to be basically their legal advisor in a scheme that would send fake electors, just these random effing nobodies, these 10 guys who would say, hey, we're the real electors of Wisconsin. And they were going to send them to Washington, D.C. To try to steal those 10 electoral votes from now President Biden. So not only is he, again, regressively conservative, not only does he have socially ridiculous views, he's also, I think, I hate to use this F word, a fascist. That's pretty fascistic when you just try to go,
That
no.
sounds pretty fascistic to me.
Right.
TRU.
Let me just hijack an election to instill my conservative values forcibly on an entire group of people who already rejected me once. I think you're fair to say that.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
qualify. So, in my view, I know a lot of people like respond to different things. I know a lot of people respond to positive affirmative messages about a candidate, and there's plenty to talk about with Judge Protasewicz. But I'm the sort of person, I know there are other people out there who are also motivated by other things too. How bad is the alternative choice? And, how much does harm reduction play in your moral philosophy? And in my opinion, there's enough there about Judge Kelly so that even if Judge Protasewicz was not the strong candidate that she is, and she is, even if she wasn't, you still shouldn't vote for Daniel Kelly. You should still vote for the alternative, because the alternative can't be worse. This man is, if he did this in 2020, what's to stop him from doing it again in 2024? Donald Trump is almost certainly going to be the Republican nominee. If Donald Trump tried to steal the election in 2024, why wouldn't he, or excuse me, in 2020, why wouldn't he try in 2024? And if Daniel Kelly was inclined to help him in 2020, why wouldn't Daniel Kelly do it in 2024? And then if he's in a position where he's not just an attorney advising Republicans, he's one of 7 Wisconsin Supreme Court justices, his position to do so would be infinitely higher. And you think, well, don't we have the federal Supreme Court to protect us? I'll remind you who sits on the federal Supreme Court. So
Not right now, nope.
it's vital that this man never sit on that bench again.
Yeah. The Republicans love to talk about activist judges and all of that, and meanwhile, they put forward people like this guy who is in. There is no possible way that you can argue that this guy isn't a activist judge, a guy who just thinks that whatever his worldview is, or the worldview of those who have supported his political campaign directly, that he's willing to just cross over any sort of norm or ethical standard in order to get that through. That's what we have. That's what we've seen from this guy, is just a willingness to discard any sense of ethics in order to forward his own agenda. So I will say, I will echo what you said. This is the type of person who should be kept as far away from judicial power as possible. Somebody who is totally incapable of removing their own political agenda from the cases that they're judging and the world that they are designing for the people around them, the people that they have power over. They should not be given any power over anyone.
Preach. Or whatever the verb is for the mother of demons. I guess it wouldn't be preach,
Sure.
right?
So works.
Okay,
The power still flows anyway. Belief is what matters.
that's right. The other
And
thing
I think
too.
this is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, this is kind of a perfect opportunity to just bring some people up to speed on what it is exactly, some of the central issues that we're talking about. Just in terms of maybe definitions for those who may not know what some of these what some of these issues are, and, jump into just discussing some of the things that from a definitional standpoint we would need to really talk about here. So basically, and I'm just going to pull out my notes so I don't ramble into oblivion here. I prepared some of these things just so we can go over them quickly, but some of the major issues in this race and some of the scummier things that Judge Kelly has already demonstrated is basically how he's perfectly fine with allowing gerrymandering to continue as it is and get even worse, where he is totally fine with the concept of there being no standard for judicial ethics or recusal from any cases, which, as Pondering stated earlier, is why he just jumped in and voted in favor of people who gave him a significant amount of money. And then let's not even forget, his support for trans erasure and for making abortion an illegal thing. So I think the best place to start would be gerrymandering. So for those of you who aren't in the loop, gerrymandering is a process where every 10 years, states redraw their legislative and congressional district lines following the taking of a census of a population. So normally, due to how communities change, this is actually an important thing because redistricting is seen as critical to our democracy, as in maps have to be redrawn to ensure that districts are equally populated, they comply with laws like the Voting Rights Act, and are otherwise representative of a state's population. So while the original intent of the founders was that, maps should be created where they represent an exact portrait or a miniature of the US population, problem is gerrymandering is redistricting in the form where it's a tool that produces election outcomes that are detached from the preference of voters, and this is especially important because in this state race, the Republicans already hold a supermajority in Wisconsin, so they can pretty much redraw their maps, to any way that they see fit to benefit themselves. And
Do they currently have a supermajority? I think they're
They're like
in
I
one
think they're
chamber.
once
already
In
makes
one
one
chamber,
chamber.
the
that
Senate, and then in the Assembly.
gerrymandering for a party advantage cannot be challenged in the federal courts. So this state race is way more important because of that. Also, welcome back, Jack.
hello.
Yeah,
I
Jack.
returned.
Oh,
Sorry.
am I muted?
Listen, as soon as I show up, 7 people leave. You never show up. Demon Mama is only still here because I was crying in the corner about
Yeah,
how I
I
drive
was
people
strong
away.
pressured. No, I've actually been
Yeah.
having a really good time, and
Good.
actually this conversation's been really great. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I do actually have to roll out now.
Okay.
However, I'm sorry.
Specifically
but,
despite you pondering.
Yeah,
no,
really.
not despite you pondering. I've actually had a very nice conversation with you. It's been wonderful.
Likewise.
It was great to meet you, Cam. And I don't know, Kevin. I swear we've talked before, but I don't know if we've actually talked on a panel or anything, or like in person. But it was great to talk with you. And maybe we'll talk
Absolutely.
again in the future. That'd be wonderful. It's been really,
I called
really
into
good.
your show once. I think that was what it was.
I remember that. Yeah, I think I do remember that. I was gonna say I swear we'd talked at some point in the past, but I wasn't 100% sure. But for
Demon Mama, before you go, I'm sorry, real quick. You mentioned calling in. I'm curious. is it still the process? You have to draw a pentagram and say "Mother of Demons" 3 times. Is that how
3
we?
times.
Okay.
That's how you do it.
Alright.
That's what will get you in, pretty much,
Okay.
almost assuredly. I mean, there's sometimes a bit of a waiting.
There's still a
period,
queue.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a queue. It's been overwhelmed. We're popular these days. A lot of sinners looking to commit sins. So it's a sinful time. What can I say? Business is booming. Um, but
Hmm.
but no, it's been wonderful. And for all of you out there, I'm gonna take my little going out period to say, seriously, sign up, consider participating in this very important strategic election. This is one of those times where it really makes a big difference, and there's a bunch of really cool people involved, some of whom you've already met today. So thank you so much, Jack, for having me on. Thank you for inviting
Yeah.
me, and good luck to everyone.
Indeed.
It was really great to be here and talk about all this. So, everybody's spamming the chat already. So, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Farewell.
Thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Bye.
And then there were 4.
And also just thank you to Kevin FM and Cam for holding it down while I was gone, because I know we had several people pull out last minute, so this this has come together really well, especially with my emergency needing to go. But my mom's safe at home to give everyone an update.
Good.
And I'm watching the family dog for a couple weeks while she recovers. So
Oh.
dog.
What's that floof's name?
This is Samus.
Samus.
Oh.
Like, isn't that a video game? Like
Yeah.
SAMUS? Okay.
Yeah, the Metroid games.
Wait.
Nice. Her mom's a Metroid gamer, is what she's getting at.
Hi there. Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
But pondering, have you had a chance to talk about? I know you had a lot of notes about like Donald Trump's indictment affecting the potential turnout for this election. Can you elaborate on that a bit, if you haven't
Yeah,
already?
so we didn't get a chance to talk about this. And I mean, a lot of it is just speculation, and from a lot of political scientists who are, I would say it's informed speculation. But so obviously, earlier in the week, Attorney General Bragg from Manhattan made good on the rumors that he was going to indict former President Donald Trump, and that happened. And I think the current plan is that he will surrender himself and be arraigned on Tuesday.
Yep.
And the particular charges are unknown, but preliminary polling has indicated, and kind of just vibe checks all over social media, is that obviously it's like kicking a hornet's nest as far as his base is concerned. Now,
Yeah.
there are a lot of
Yeah.
people who think that this will be a benefit to him in the general election. I have no reason to believe that. Maybe not. But in terms of pissing off his base, seems to have done a good job.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that Republicans in Wisconsin, obviously this is national news, just through sheer osmosis. Okay, Trump 2024 election. What's going on here? Oh my God, there's a Supreme Court thing going on in Wisconsin. And so I feel like, and I think a lot of people do, that there could be a relationship between these two things, and that this will almost have a feedback loop of making Republicans more sensitive and more aware of the 2023 election. And so I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. But
I feel like that's pretty on the nose. I feel like, the angry kind of the swarm of angry MAGA folks are going to be looking to do anything and everything they can, like from up to and maybe even including violence, depending. But certainly
no reason to assume that they wouldn't.
Certainly,
Yeah,
that
at this point.
includes like taking electoral action that they can, whether that's like voting in their like insular, small town community, showing up at town hall meetings, or like turning out to vote for the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. And
Especially if Judge Kelly's reputation as a Trump loyalist, which I think he's earned that reputation,
Yeah.
is known. So like I think my thinking is, okay, people who might not be otherwise politically engaged at state and local levels, they find presidential elections super sexy. They're devoted to Donald Trump. They find this news, it pisses them off. They do some digging. Many of them live in Wisconsin because, again, Wisconsin is fairly split. You know,
Yeah.
Pew Research indicates you got 42% of the population leans left, 42 leans right, and then 16 down the middle. It is uniquely divided. And so people who might not have otherwise paid attention to this race might be going, well, hell, I'm definitely getting out and voting, especially because this guy is a Trump loyalist. So I feel like it is more important, more essential that you phone bank with Cam, or you go out and canvass, with Progressive Victory and Progress Libs the next couple of days, whatever date or whatever opportunities they have available, because we really want to maximize our vote, because I'm sure they will.
yeah,
Exclamation point canvas, exclamation point phone bank.
Exclamation point phone bank, exclamation point canvas. Right?
Indeed. Well,
Yes.
Thank you.
and it's
Canvas
just
with 2 S's
yeah.
at the end.
Canvas.
Fun fact. Yeah,
He
I
said ass.
real story. When I was making the commands, I like wrote it down with 2 S's, and I was like, nah, that's just me putting an ass at the end of this word. That can't possibly be how it's supposed to be. And so previous stream, just
Was
one S the entire time.
What she's not telling you was she thought it was a Freudian slip, but that was only after it was like can booty, can cake, can whatever. It's like she went through all like, oh, this isn't right. This isn't right. Oh, it's canvas.
Can.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can wagon. Yeah.
Um.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can dump truck.
Oh gosh. The
Judge Protese, which might not show up tomorrow. She might be like,
Progressive Victory.
I'm sorry in advance.
Yeah, I get it.
So the main thing here is that there's a huge need for people to show up, because I think that a lot of folks, I know we were getting a lot of support before for this race, and like the fundraising is completely ridiculous all across the board for this one, but I'm worried because a lot of the advertising, both from Dan Kelly's side and from Judge Janet's side, tie him so intimately with Trump that like this indictment could inadvertently backfire, and almost in effect almost giving Dan Kelly like free advertising from the Protasiewicz camp. And so I am really hoping that you guys can show up to Canvas tomorrow, and if you do, you can meet Judge Janet and the phone bank, which I know all of you can do, even if you're not in the United States. So you got headsets. I know a lot of you are gamers. Okay, just
Gamers rise up.
Gamers rise up. Take like I don't know what are the kids playing these days. Take like a half hour out of playing Fortnite.
You know what? You don't even actually have to
Exactly.
stop playing video games. We have people that they need something mindless to do while they're phone banking, and they join a VC in our Discord, and all mute and deafen, and then play Putt Party. So
That
hey.
well, that sounds exactly like
That's
what everyone in
amazing.
my community would want to do.
bring that Call of Duty energy to the phone banking. You know what I'm saying?
But not the lobby energy. Don't be
No,
dropping
no.
gamer words.
Yeah.
No
Um,
gamer words except you are very poggers if you come phone bank.
True.
That is the gamer word. We will use pog and poggers.
And fun.
Puggies.
Let's see. What are some of the other aspects of this race we haven't talked about yet? I know we've been going for a hot minute. How are
Let's see.
we doing? Also, have we talked much about Progressive Victory, Cam?
I feel like we've a good bit. I'll never say no to talking more about Progressive Victory. I'll never stop shilling. So, hey,
Yeah.
progress.win. Join. Got a super cool Discord server. You can find progressives in your area, in your state. You might find a progressive that's like 10 minutes down the road that you didn't know, and you can become friends and go canvas and go phone bank together. It's a great time. It's a great way to meet people in your area or to forge communities with people not in your area, you know? I've made some great friends that are local to me in Louisiana, some friends in Texas, friends in Washington, and even Alaska. So I mean, it's a great place. Progress.win.
In the name of
I mean,
in the words of one of the greatest organizers of all time, Pokemon Go to the phone bank.
Agreed.
Yep.
meet single liberals in your area.
God.
True. This is true.
turning inadvertently into the largest dating service.
Exactly.
True. I met my current partner through Progressive Victory.
Well, there we go. Best
Sweet.
advertisement.
There you go.
Looking for love, turn left.
Oh my goodness.
Progressive Victory.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank
Ooh.
you.
That's a great slogan.
We
Thank
need
you.
to use
Trademark.
that for Valentine's Day next year.
Absolutely.
I'll be in touch with the trademark office.
Oh goodness. Did we
Yeah.
talk about the oh god, the debate that the candidates had?
No,
I don't think we did, actually.
Oh, I didn't even know they had one.
Yeah,
See?
they had one debate presented by News 3 Now and Wiz Politics, which never gets old to say. And yeah, they got up in front of an audience and had a little debate. And it was really weird to watch because it almost came across as opposite of what you would think. Like, Judge Janet was kind of like the more like fiery one, while Dan Kelly tried to pretend to be kind of like the apolitical, like, I have no dog in this race.
That is so beneath me.
Why
would I be political
why
in
would-
this race?
Why would we need to even discuss the role of recusal when what have I to recuse myself from? You know, like real above it all type of attitude when like his record absolutely does not hold up to his positions.
I mean, plus he lied his ass off too. As in, when Judge Janet called him out on being involved in that little plot to overturn the election, you know, he's like, "That's a bold-faced lie, ma'am. I would never."
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the same kind of weasel. It's that same kind of Weasley energy that permeated the other debate he was in earlier this year when there were 4 candidates. And, you know, I harped about this in the other Wisconsin streams that we did together, but I'll say it again. His energy very much gives me the energy of conservative justices who were in their confirmation hearings going to the U.S. Supreme Court, where, you know, instead of kind of doing a Judge Bork and he just let his mask fall off, you know, he firmly glued it on and was like, "Oh no, I'm an impartial justice. I only consider the facts of the case, and for things that are political issues, I will let the legislature deal with them. And oh, this Roe v. Wade that you're asking about, it's settled precedent. I would never touch that." And then as soon as they get an opportunity to, they do away with Roe v. Wade. But, you know, it's the same kind of energy that we see here. And this debate between Judge Kelly and Judge Protasewicz, definitely exemplified that energy.
Oh yeah.
You know, yeah.
Well, that and like other like I feel like judges in general are very like tend to try and stay out of like the political limelight, right? And with Judge Kelly, other judges in Wisconsin have been coming forward and being like, "Hey, I've been a judge my entire life, and this guy, I would never do this for anyone else, but this guy is unfit for office, and we're telling you, like, as fellow judges, like, he tried to overturn the peaceful transfer of power, which is like the core of democracy, and that makes him unfit for holding this office, which, by the way, is one of the most important judicial offices in the country."
Yeah, I feel like not seeing the debate, and it's sad because I had no idea what was going on
Oh,
or that it happened, so I might go back and rewatch it. But yeah, I feel
there-
like
there's a link to it in the doc I sent.
perfect. Okay, I feel like yeah, if you are party to, again, a fascistic coup, even if it's not like a violent one, right? You just like provide, you get paid six figures to provide legal counsel. Like, here's how you should overturn democracy. I'm gonna lend you my legal expertise. I feel like that is disqualifying for a judge. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
call me crazy, call me one of those soy liberals or soy lefties. Like, oh my god, you don't want your judges, not participating in schemes to overthrow the republic. That's me.
yeah. I mean, I kind of like after the Civil War, a lot of the people who participated in that probably shouldn't have been able to hold office.
I
Yeah.
should say.
Wait,
I
y'all
mean,
don't
honestly,
like your public officials with a side of insurrection?
Not
No, I like them to hold that. Like, I request them, like, hey, can you just like at least put it on the side? Like, at least put it on the side, or preferably without.
yeah.
It's a
I
little,
kind of find that
it's a little zesty from time to time, but only when it's against the British.
Zesty. Yeah.
well, exactly. That's the only appropriate time I feel.
Hmm.
And I mean, I think one of the biggest mistakes that the US government has ever made is allowing, former Confederate officials to integrate themselves into Congress and other chambers of power, because seriously, they tried to do a whole ass insurrection and secede from the nation. The warning signs were there that they don't like you.
Not a half-ass insurrection, a whole ass.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we're not saying.
Canvas.
Now we're
Well,
not
and-
saying that Daniel Kelly is a Confederate, but we're not saying he's dissimilar completely from a Confederate.
Yeah.
I'm making my mind up. Hang on. I'm trying to like. Okay, I guess. Maybe. No,
Yeah.
it's interesting though. Kevin raises a really interesting point, especially with, it's also tying back to like the broader national narratives with respect to Donald Trump. Again, with the indictment, you have people having these conversations and have had these conversations for some time that maybe what President Biden should do to preemptively pardon Donald Trump, just as President Ford did with Richard Nixon, just like how President Lincoln planned to take it easy on Confederate leaders after they left, and I think President Johnson did as well. But to Kevin's point, it's like, to me, if there's not a sufficient level of social, reputational, and political ostracization, if you try to overthrow the republic, it's just a scrimmage, right? There are
Yeah.
historians, political historians, who can make a very compelling case that part of the reason that we struggled so much in the the post-Civil War era, antebellum, I think it's
Reconstruction
antebellum, or maybe
era.
it's- yeah, Reconstruction era, is because an example wasn't made of the Confederate leaders. Because I mean, and I understand the rationale. The rationale is, okay, we kicked their asses in the Civil War. They'd learned their lesson. Let's just it's all about healing. And that, I feel like we do that every single time with people who not just violate social norms or political norms, but do it in the most egregious way. And I think it's ridiculous. So I'm not saying jail Daniel Kelly or anything like that, but at the very least, can we please deny him a seat on the highest court in the state in which he resides? And not only do that, but send a message like, bro, you're wasting your time even running for stuff like that. That's just not an option for you anymore. You have the legal right to do it, but you're going to be so just blown out of the water. It's a waste of your time, effort, and energy. There's no path to public office for you. You that's done. The rest of the world is before you, but like this is just not an option. I feel like we need to do that. I feel like we need to send a strong message that it's just not an option.
Right. When talking about Reconstruction, it's been said that the Confederacy, they won the war after the war in still being able to maintain power and push for the policies that they wanted. And unfortunately, we're seeing a similar soft hand, I think, post this insurrection. And so it's our job, I think, to stand up and to win that war after this insurrection and say, no, this is not an option. We're not going to let this happen. We're not letting our guard down. We're paying attention, doing the work that needs to be done. Not just showing up for the midterms, but year
Yeah.
round.
Well, and that's the real thing, right? Like the conservative movement right now has been so good at pivoting from national level elections to using kind of the trans panic to focus on local and state level elections, like all the way down to school boards. And there hasn't been a similar push from the left to really like kind of counter that. So we need to be as vigilant as we can be in our local and state elections and be getting involved, maybe not just in our own local elections, but our neighboring local elections. This is why building kind of these coalitions can be so important, like with Progressive Victory.
Exactly.
And you can be a part of that by using !Canvas, !Phone Bank in chat, and get involved, because we need you now, and we need you quite a bit. So
that was a beautiful segue for my rant about why or how conservatives are hella advantage in this country. If you'll just permit me to kind of press that seal in to make Jack's point here. So in this country, the left, and when I say the left, I just mean you're not conservative. I consider the left, the broad left, to be left of center, liberal, neoliberal, progressive, social democrat, democratic socialist, whatever. You're not conservative. This is the blanket term. We have 3 advantages. I'll give us 3. There are more of us in general. Our policies are more popular overwhelmingly, and we have a better grassroots game. Those are our 3 advantages. I would need like all fingers and toes to describe the numerous systemic advantages of the right in this country. It's ridiculous. From a broad philosophical perspective, the right wing in this country, they offer no affirmative agenda. Progressives, the left, whether you agree with their policy prescriptions or not, and there's a good faith disagreement to be had if you don't think that Social Security should be addressed that particular way, or single payer option for healthcare versus, whatever. There are plenty of good faith disagreements to be had, but we want to move the needle. We want to progress. We want to move. Conservatives, just from a base philosophical perspective, don't want that. They either want to keep shit exactly the way it is, or to tear it down. And think about it. Is it easier to build a building or to demolish it, or to keep it the way it is? So from the very beginning, from the starting pistol firing, we have a harder job on the left. Then you look at the framework of this country on a broad federal level. Separation of powers, system of federalism, all that is great in theory when you have an opposition that's loyal to you, that have legitimate disagreements, but believe in the same values and, do these things in good faith, like an Aaron Sorkin West Wing world. But that's not the world in which we live. So in this case, separation of powers and federalism are things that constantly hamper progress, right? So you look at slavery. It took us 80 years after the conception of this country to abolish slavery. And then it took another 80 years to deal with Jim Crow, redlining, segregation, things like that. And that's for slavery. Ending slavery was like the most unambiguously morally righteous cause in this nation's history. And it took 160 years to effectively deal with, and a civil war. It's how slow it takes. You took it at a broad systemic level like that. You look at the states. So Jack's talking about states here. Okay, we have 30 of the 50 states in the country. 30 of them are controlled by Republican legislatures. So a minority of states, even though it's the majority of the population, are controlled by the left or Democrats. You have the Electoral College. Political analyst David Shore, he looks at this every year. Democrats have to constantly overperform and overperform with each subsequent election and presidential elections to just stay competitive with the Electoral College. That's how outsized the red rule vote is in this country. So that's another thing. You look at the media apparatus. The biggest news network in this country is Fox News. You look at unconventional media. Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, all these people, they blow Vosh and Destiny and David Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen out of the water in terms of outreach. So then you look at the Senate. My God, we had a 50-50 split Senate, even though the 50 that were on our side represented 40 million more people than the 50 on their side. So it's insane. We have a 6-person regressive supermajority on the Supreme Court. Yes, dark money. There you go. And especially with the Supreme Court, that's a huge thing. So, and I'm just glossing over it just for the sake of brevity, but we are so outclassed systemically in large part because, going back to Jack's point, even Cam's point, in terms of how conservatives dealt with losing the Civil War, they were cunning. They took the long game. We know in the post-Civil War era that, again, conservatives were very quick to add extra states because they knew it was going to increase their representation in the Senate and the House of Representatives and the Electoral College. Meanwhile, you talk about a country that was founded on the notion of taxation without representation. Puerto Rico's not a state.
Yep.
DC's not a state.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so insane. And then, I'm sorry, I just got to get this. Then the asymmetry of expectations. This is another thing that drives me nuts. Conservatives are graded on a curve. Every time President Biden or a Democrat is interviewed by anybody, including by nominally leftist networks, it's always like, Mr. President, what are you going to do to reach across the aisle to work with the other side? Donald Trump never got that question from Fox News when he was president. Mr. President, what are you going to do to basically shut up and start working with Democrats in good faith? He was never asked that. Kevin McCarthy has never been asked that question. The expectation is Republicans and conservatives can do whatever they want. They can abdicate their responsibility to co-govern because constitutionally, even though they're in the minority, they have an obligation to pass legislation and to help the majority govern. But they get to kick back and always point to the other guy. And even when the other guy, like, it's just insane. And then Democrats are blamed for not cleaning up their mess. That's all that we have to constantly fight. And in return, we only have 3 advantages. So that's why this race is so damn important. It's not just about holding the line. This is a rare opportunity to actually move the line back in our favor.
Yep.
Sorry, it just
But,
pisses me
you know,
off, something fierce.
To build on that, one of our 3 advantages is there are more of us, and power comes from 2 places: organized money and organized people. We have the people. And that's what this work is, what canvassing and phone banking is. It is using our people power, organizing and coming together to achieve these goals. And you can really make a difference. So, some work that Progressive Victory did earlier this year in January, there was a special election in Virginia. And it was for a state senate position. And this position would have determined whether or not Glenn Youngkin could put through a 15-week abortion ban. So, yep, Democrats had the control of the state senate, but there was a pro-life Democrat. So this was going to determine the balance between pro-life and pro-choice. And we phone banked for 1 week, made 80,000 dials, had conversations with a lot of people,
Damn.
and confirmed 1,100 supporters in favor of Aaron Rouse. And Aaron Rouse ended up winning by, like, I think less than 500. So we confirmed and gave resources of where's your nearest polling place, when to go vote, and reached out to people who they didn't even know that this race was happening. They didn't know the implications of the race. And they're like, oh, I'm pro-choice. I got to go out and vote. Um, and we doubled that margin of victory.
Yeah.
So the impact there, you can seriously make a difference just with a couple hours of time coming out to a phone bank or spending an afternoon going and canvassing, knocking on doors. It really does make a difference.
And you know,
Sidebar, real
Virginians,
quick.
thank you.
Sidebar. You mentioned chat earlier. Where's the chat and stuff like this for this stream? Just out of curiosity.
well, I'm streaming right now, and I have my bot commands set up, so
Gotcha.
you can go to
So
Riverboat.
when with
Jack.
the exclamation point canvas and exclamation point phone bank, it'll be in your chat where it pops up.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Over on twitch.tv/riverboatjack or riverboat.gg.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of this I think comes down to, like you were saying, Cam, it comes down to people power. It comes down to people believing that they have the ability to actually change things and move the line. You know, like pondering. You were talking about how I think the politics of Mitch McConnell. I think it falls on Mitch McConnell pretty specifically. Of just like a legislative wall. Just we will do nothing. We will not reach across the aisle. We will do absolutely everything and anything in our power to make sure nothing gets done. It has had this knock-on effect of convincing people that they have no political power, that they have no ability to actually enact change, that they have no ability to move that line in any meaningful degree, which I don't think that was actually McConnell's intent when it happened, but I think that has been one of the effects, almost undeniably. And it is, I think what we're seeing here is millennials and Gen Z kind of coming together and realizing, wait, that was a lie. That was a lie that we've been believing for like the last 10 years, but it's not real. It was all kind of fabricated and an illusion. So let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. And I think we're seeing that the anti-trans rhetoric, the anti-LGBT rhetoric, the frankly the economic policies that have been robbing millennials and Gen Z of any potential future. Like, I don't know about you people, but I probably am not going to be able to retire. So like I think all of that is coming together and has broken through kind of the doomerism that millennials inherited from Gen X. And I think we're on the cusp of like a new era of politics, and you all can be a part of that too. Like, chat, you can come and join us. You can be part of this movement to make politics work for us again, instead of just work for the richest and wealthiest among us. These people are old and they're starting to die off, okay? So it's about time for us to step up and actually like take spots in the leadership of our country, our states, our cities. Because if we don't, corporate ghouls will. And you know what? Corporate ghouls suck. Controversial opinion, I know. But maybe I think we can do better.
Absolutely. And on that beautiful note, y'all, I think I'm going to bow out for the night. But it was really nice streaming with all of you wonderful party people and just having a blast for a good cause.
Heck yeah. And
Thanks, Kevin.
I think maybe this might be a good point to wrap up. So Kevin, before you go, maybe you can give some closing thoughts.
Okay, sure. So honestly, I don't know. Honestly, this kind of race feels like it's a once in a lifetime thing, because it's so impactful, not only on a state level, but on, potentially on the federal level, countrywide. People as far as Seattle, Washington might feel the implications of this. So I can't stress enough how important it is that everybody who's watching helps in some way to not only beat Dan Kelly, because we've been talking a lot about that dingus tonight, but also help elect Judge Janet Protasewicz and basically help the course of democracy, like get in the right direction. Use that power that you have as millennials, as Zoomers, or as any type of voter who just believes in doing the right thing. And I think that will be good. But it depends on your help. So we thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us, Kevin. Appreciate you turning out and staying so much longer than you initially planned. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Anything for you guys. So have a beautiful night, and I bid you adieu.
Bye,
Adieu.
Kev.
Goodbye. Okay, where's the button? Oh, there.
How about you, Cam?
Yeah, no, this is a really important race. It's a really important election, but there's a lot of other elections that maybe aren't gonna get this much hype or this much attention. But we're doing the work in Progressive Victory, and we'd love to have you join. It's a great experience being a part of a community and doing the work together. And I would just want to let y'all know, if you have never phone banked, have never canvassed, like, we are here to make this a good experience for you. I'm going to be leading tomorrow's phone bank and Monday's phone bank, and I would love to see y'all there. We will train you, give you all the resources and tools that you need, and be available if you have any questions or anything pops up. So, um, I know it can be a little anxiety inducing. You might be a little nervous, but like, please just take that first leap. Just sign up for the Zoom and join the Zoom. At least hear us out on the training. Um, and then just see, I'd try to challenge people, just make 3 calls. 3 calls. I mean, that's a difference in and of itself. If after 3 you feel comfortable to make another 3, try for another 3. But, just challenge yourself, 3 calls.
And we got some confirmation in chat that you are great at training.
Aw.
Yeah. So you're in good hands, chat. And thank you so much for filling in for me while I was gone. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and really appreciated getting to talk to y'all.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
It's nice to meet you, Cam.
Nice to meet you too.
And
too.
pondering. We got some
All right.
closing thoughts.
Yeah, listen.
Some closing ponders.
Yeah, and I was actually going to break into song with closing time, but again, I have the flu, so then I would like devolve into a hacking fit and then tip over. So,
well, thank you for being here, even though you're sick. I had no idea.
I'm on the tail end of it. I actually had it. Did we stream Monday or Tuesday?
We
Something
streamed
like
Wednesday.
That? Okay, well, so I had it then too, like the fever broken and whatnot, and I thought I was on the tail end of it, but I'm just a congestion factory right now. You can probably hear it in my voice. Normally, my voice sounds way more prepubescent than this. Okay, this is the most baritone it's ever sounded. As far as my closing thoughts go, number one, appreciate you inviting me to do this. I appreciate Maya and Vosh and everybody else for putting Progressive Victory and Progress Libs and definitely the coalition that they built together and things like that, and everybody who's contributed. This is a big deal. I think for various reasons, because I still have a full-time job, and I know a lot of people do. We tend to get distracted by things, and if we do pay attention to politics, it's usually on a national level. I'm glad that enough attention is being drawn to this, because our system of federalism can fool us. Like, some of these key elections can have outsized impact, but they don't have the profile, right? And Progress Libs and Progressive Victory are really devoting the resources to maximizing what we're trying to do here. If April 4th comes and Judge Protasewicz loses, hopefully she doesn't, but if it happens, I don't think it'll be because there was a lack of effort on our part. Everybody who's participated in the phone banking and in the canvassing, they've really given quite a bit of their time, effort, and energy, and there's still stuff to be done. Again, the election's not till April 4th. It is April 1st. We've got time to still make a difference. So canvassing and phone banking, it's really important. Exclamation point, canvas, exclamation point, phone bank. And again, they'll set you up for success. The literature, the training, the resources, the people to lean on. You are not alone. Every introvert, because again, the vast majority of people I canvassed with were introverts. They were people who, by their own admission, never thought they would do anything like this. But they felt the civic duty. They felt the compulsion to do that, and they felt sufficiently supported. You will too. Promise you, you will too. The odds of you having a negative experience, incredibly low. But again, even canvassing, because it's not like every door you knock on, somebody will answer. Right? It's like a 30% rate of people who answer. Most of the times, you'll just be knocking doors and leaving literature behind. It's so important. We have to keep Daniel Kelly out of the seat. This is a rare opportunity to undo a lot of Republican shenaniganry, I guess I would call it, in Wisconsin. Potentially undo the gerrymandering, where we've got a split 50-50 state, and they have tried to legislate their way into a supermajority because they don't play fair. They know in a fair fight, they'll probably lose.
Yep.
So they will min-max and try to rig the game, and they won't stop. That they don't even campaign on platforms anymore, folks. It's just about rigging the damn game. This is a chance to not only stop them from rigging it further, but to undo the rigging that they've done.
Yep.
This is so important. So please, if you can contribute, if you can donate or canvas or phone bank, this is extremely important. And yeah, so go Judge Janet, April 4th, and go democracy.
Go democracy. Thank you so much for coming out. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been fantastic.
Thanks, Captain Jack. By the way, it's my new nickname. I don't know if anybody else has done that, but I feel like it needs to be a thing. Why don't you have a captain's hat?
I need one. I just haven't. It hasn't occurred to me.
It needs to be a thing.
Mostly, I instead of going with like the pirate aesthetic, I've like in my head thought of like the riverboat gambler aesthetic. Like
I didn't even know that was a thing. My mind instantly goes to like just a boat. And then I think Jack, and I think Jack Sparrow, obviously. Anyway, yeah.
My nickname comes from like an offhand joke that someone at a camp I worked at made about how they were gonna name their kid Jack, but their aunt told them, "Oh, don't you name them Jack. Everyone will think of Riverboat Jack, the gambler." And like everyone was just like, who is Riverboat Jack the Gambler? And then my name was Jack, so everyone at this camp that I worked at called me Riverboat Jack for the rest of the year.
And you just leaned into it.
I just leaned into it, yeah. But yeah,
right,
Riverboat Jack the Gambler.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Captain Jack.
Thanks for coming out. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You have a good night.
You too. And folks, we did it. My closing thoughts. This election, if you are at all interested in politics, if you are at all committed to trying to change the world to be a better place, if you are at all into the idea that the world can be made better, this is the thing to do right now. You might not be able to do much about climate change on your own. But you know what actually helps to alleviate climate change? Being part of a movement that enacts systemic change. Systemic change is what we need. And this is one of the rare opportunities where you yourself can make the difference in systemic change occurring in the state of Wisconsin and in the United States as a whole. And because, unfortunately, the United States is a superpower, which means any of our internal politics affect every other country on Earth. What we do in Wisconsin here over the next several days affects not just us, not just the people of Wisconsin, not just the United States, but literally the entire world. It can mean the difference between, the state of Wisconsin going for a Republican who will drag us into a foreign war, or a Democrat who won't. It can mean the difference between, thousands upon thousands of drone strikes occurring or not. It can mean the difference between a Green New Deal that revitalizes manufacturing in America or a slow decline into irrelevance. Among the choking fumes of global climate change. It can mean the difference between trans people being able to exist in Wisconsin or having to flee north across the border to Canada. It can mean the difference between women being able to make autonomous decisions about their own body or being beholden to the state to make those decisions for them. This is the opportunity right now to choose the better option, to choose a better tomorrow, and to get out there, roll up your sleeves, and become part of the solution to a problem that will otherwise persist. So, vote for Judge Janet on April 4th, and those of you who aren't in Wisconsin, get to work. You know the commands, we've been saying them enough, they're on the screen. And thank you all so much for your time tonight. I really, really appreciate it.